Hey there. This show is only possible because so many generous people have gone to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv and given us some money. Makes a big difference for us. So thank you if you have done that. And if you haven't done that, consider doing that. Patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Watch Out for Fireballs Dispatch, our monthly Q&A topics listener response extravaganza.
Yes, indeed. I need to match that energy now and escalate. No, it is
extravaganza. Carnival. Hey.
You wrote us letters. No, that's like a Flophouse thing. No, it's July 2020. We are reading your questions, answering your questions. We got a topic for you, and then we're going to talk about. We're going to read your responses to July's games. We got a lot of them about Hitman 2 and Tactics Ogre, and we even got one for Mario Golf. So,
Well, good on you, Mario Golf, little guy.
Yeah, and then at the end, we're going to reveal the games we are covering in September.
Yeah, we'll tell you when September begins.
Yeah. Why don't we get started here with the Cinder Elf, who says, I played the first Dishonored for the first time this month and then listened to your episode about it, but I could not help wondering what a post-COVID-19 Dishonored WAF episode would be like. So do you have any thoughts on the game now vis-a-vis governmental response to the plague? Everybody buckle up. There are a lot of political questions this month.
Yeah, it's the world, it's the water.
Yeah.
For me, no, like the Dishonored plague does not feel very much like our plague, and also like the government did stuff.
Yeah.
In Dunwall, say what you will about Dunwall, but like they did stuff about it.
Yeah, they sent out troops to,
Fuck. There's quarantine in place.
Yeah. Yeah, they recognize that anything should be done. Yeah. Yeah.
So Dishonored is a fantastic fantasy world in which the government takes some kind of responsibility for the healthcare of its citizens. Yeah. And in that respect,
yeah,
I don't really draw the connection too much. It's also Dishonored for me is about like world building more than like consequence. Like it's not like it's hard for Dishonored doesn't touch my heart. Like I love those games very much, but they melt away to wireframe and kind of coolness really easily. So I think for me to get Plague feels, it would have to be I'd have to care more about the people in it.
Yes. Yeah. I always saw the things that were happening with the Plague as kind of more of an externalization of what's going on inside Corvo. It just kind of like specifically because it reflects how violent he is, it always feels like it is an output as opposed to like just a state of the world that informs too many of the events, so
the chaos system kind of ties everything together, and makes it smaller as opposed to this kind of monolithic outside set piece kind of thing.
Yeah. Although when I saw all those stories about how rats were turning cannibal and getting really bold and stuff, because specifically in cities, since fewer people are out and moving and dining out, there is less food waste for rats to get at. And so like it causes swarms and stuff like that. I did get Dishonored feels off of that.
Yeah. Go Rats.
Go Rats.
In Dishonored and in New York. Go Rats.
Oh.
Harris asks, I've been playing two very politically charged and wildly different games lately, Disco Elysium, to go along with the show, and Far Cry 5. And they make really interesting companions to one another because they're both games that explicitly tread in some hot-button contemporary issues. Far Cry 5 is, in many ways, a total failure to do anything with a deeply fertile subject matter, and Disco is a pretty resounding success. Can you think of some other examples of games that handle explicitly political subject matter notably well or poorly, and what is the difference maker there? BioShock Infinite is very bad at politics.
Yeah, that's the
standard
that's
example,
the easy go-to one. Yes,
that's easy, but it's true.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that game does a bad job with politics.
Yeah. It's probably worth like stripping away games that are specifically about politics. So like I could say Democracy 3, which is a really good, government simulator, or any kind of like large strategy game that grand strategy game that, deals with, diplomacy and stuff like that, or policy. No, those probably don't count. There's another question later about, it's actually the next one here. that Rob asks, which you could probably fold into this, about like revolutions in games. That probably goes in. So do you want me to just like add that onto the pile and we can talk about both at the same time?
We'll do a mini subject.
Yeah.
In the miniature climax after the credits, the cold open of the episode.
Yeah. So Rob writes, "Hey folks, new subscriber, and I already love the show, especially when I'm listening while on the clock at work." Very good. We encourage time theft.
Yeah. Thank you, Rob.
Science fiction and fantasy properties love rebellion and revolution stories. However, I find that for the most part, a lot of these narratives merely appropriate the language and symbolism from real-world revolutions without accounting for material conditions that lead to them or making a realistic resolution. Detroit Become Human was one of the most egregious examples I can think of because of how clumsily it borrows U.S. civil rights and Holocaust iconography while making a really contrived resolution for the, quote, good ending. What, in your opinion, are good examples of revolution stories in sci-fi or fantasy? The Bajorans from Deep Space Nine and the Narn from Babylon 5 are two of my favorites.
Yeah, those sound like in shows like good political things. I didn't get far enough in Deep Space Nine. Mm-hmm. I watched it when I was a teen. I haven't done a rewatch. Yeah, and then I never watched Babylon 5. So this is a hard question for me to answer because it's hard for me to think of examples. Yeah, of ones that did it well.
I wanted to throw throw an example on like appropriation of revolutionary or political kind of stuff. I've not played this game, but is there anybody who thinks that Mankind Divided's All Lives Matter campaign was a good idea?
I mean, the marketing people who did it.
Who did it.
Like it's not very much a part of the game.
Right.
It's more something that was like part of a commercial campaign. Like there's a little bit of that in game, but that's more that marketers are evil.
Yeah.
And tone deaf. Like, but that was, a bad thing. And doing like, I think that one thing that we might see now in games is people being a lot more careful about that shit. Possibly, at least now. It's hard for me not to believe that things will just like return to normal, but what if they don't? And it will be increasingly bad taste to do your, this is just like I'm the Rosa Parks of elves kind of horseshit.
Jesus, some of that elf stuff in Dragon Age Origin specifically is real rough. Yeah, it
just feels like it's a good idea to stay away from it unless you're making a piece of art actually about it.
Yeah,
don't borrow real world gravitas about things like that. It's embarrassing at best to do so. So like as far as like a good story of kind of both, like a not bad revolution and tying into Harris's question, I would say it's Papers, Please, which does political stuff really well.
Yeah.
And is an interesting, if you take the kind of rebellion path in that is, you're only seeing a tiny sliver, based on the premise of the game, but you do get kind of both sides. Like you see the cost of it.
Yeah.
Like people come in, it is a morally gray kind of thing. But it's not, it doesn't feel frivolous to me.
Yeah. One that I think that I remember being pretty good, but I played it kind of before I was more politically aware. Fable 2, specifically, like the first half of the game has you leading a revolution against the corrupt kingdom, and then the second half is you ruling. And it's specifically like one of the themes is, can a revolutionary make a good ruler? And you end up in the back half needing to make like very tough choices based on what you promised as a revolutionary versus what is realistic, and it demonstrates the cost of that there. I am sure it is more ham-handed than I am remembering, but it was a cool concept at the time, especially when the original Fable didn't really dabble in anything more profound than do evil grow horns,
Yeah. I haven't played any of the Fable games, but I went over to my friend's house once when he was playing Fable 2, and every single time my friend's roommate rather, every time I came over, he was just hammering on an anvil, like multiple visits.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh man, this looks bad. I would be willing to try one of those games, but it made it look bad.
I don't remember that as a thing that you had to do for very long, but it is something that you can do for money in the game, is take up blacksmithing work.
In terms of, and in terms of like bad revolutions or just kind of bad political things, like, so Harris mentioned Disco Elysium, which makes this difficult because I just played that, so it's difficult to think of anything because that's taking up all my brain space, and also does a really good job of both these things, I think. But an example I think of that ties into revolution and politics done well, or poorly and then kind of well, I guess, is in retrospect, a lot of the rebellion resistance stuff in, say, like Final Fantasy VI is pretty juvenile and dumb. Like, it doesn't borrow anything from the real world, but it's pretty hard to take that seriously by virtue of it being Super Nintendo. And then I think Final Fantasy VII does it better. I don't think it's great at it, but I think it does it a little bit better because it actually shows poverty.
Yeah.
It shows the effects of what it's trying to do, and kind of gives you reason for the revolution before fucking off and just having you walk around the world and snowboard and talk about Mako and Sephiroth and shit. But early on, it is about, a thing, and it takes it seriously and with like appropriate gravitas, I think. Gives reason for revolution.
Yes, that is a good example that I kind of forgot about, actually. Another one, I mean, we would be remiss, since this is the month where we talked about Tactics Ogre. Monster Games, both Tactics Ogre and Final Fantasy Tactics specifically, even though they are not about or they're not inspired by current events. They are so well observed about the relationship between people and power and corruption and things like that they do feel like they are kind of good depictions, if not melodramatic.
Yeah, I think that Tactics Ogre does a really good job with the revolution. Coming into power and that, and having the guy who does it be absolutely garbage at it. and just and that being and having to break a lot of eggs. Yeah. To do it, that's a really good example.
Fucking Duke Romway, man.
Yeah, Duke wrong way.
More like.
Yeah, like the God, what's that? Ruby Soho? What's that fucking band?
I don't know.
Ska punk band, Rancid.
Oh,
like that. No, that was Sublime that did the wrong way.
Oh,
not Rancid. Fuck, it's even worse. It just keeps getting worse. No, it was 311. No, it just.
It was a crossover between 311. It was 311 and Brian Setzer Orchestra. No.
Collaborating. No. I'm falling into a ska hole. Help!
Hit ejection.
Yeah, gotta get out of the sky. But yeah, I don't have deep answers for either of those questions, but that's stuff that comes to mind. For it. And also, like, man, Harris brought up like Far Cry 5. Everything about Far Cry 5's like lead up and marketing and stuff made me feel. I've never felt stronger. Like, oh, they're gonna fuck it up.
Oh yeah,
like it was like watching America's Funniest Home Videos. Like they show a video and a guy gets on a riding lawnmower, and you're like, he's not gonna mow his lawn. That's how I felt about the Far Cry people. Like, oh, it's about a cult in America. They're not gonna mow their lawn. Like, this guy's gonna end up under that lawnmower 100%.
Yep. I just for me the fascination was like exactly how are they going to fuck it up. I didn't expect them to fuck it up the way that they did, but
yeah, amazing how quickly that game went away. Like modern AAA games are so fucking ephemeral. As a thing. Like that was a huge thing for like, the marketing and there's all this flex for it. And it came out and everyone was like, it's a Far Cry game. It does the politics bad, but it's just a Far Cry game. And then immediately people stopped talking about it. And then I remember it being like on really deep discount. Like pretty
kind of
shockingly
immediately.
Quick. There's no legs to any of those like big Ubisoft sandbox nightmares.
Kind of related to these, but Assassin's Creed tends to do this pretty well, actually. Insofar as it is very well researched in terms of like historical fiction kind of stuff. Like, you end up with goofy things like, piloting around some of Leonardo da Vinci's war machines or whatever. Kind of
Pardon? Really?
They'll just like, oh, Leonardo da Vinci. he's like a person you can meet, he's a fairly major character in at least Brotherhood. And what the game developers did was they looked at some of his like sketchbooks and thought, oh, we could probably like make that in the game and have it work. And then you have like a goofy side mission where you do that. That stuff aside, the stuff where you're actually like interacting with revolutionaries and working against the entrenched power, in the different games end up being pretty good. Yeah,
that sounds dumb to me, but I will trust you. I haven't played it, but driving around one of those like silly war machine things sounds really dumb.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't have led with that as the example of a way that it fails at that.
That is cool. Like it does a really good job with history by letting you fly around Da Vinci's badass theoretical war machines.
No, it is that part is not cool. That part is extremely dorky. Although those missions do end up being pretty fun,
Yeah. No, I can imagine it being good. It's just very funny as far as like history comes alive.
Yeah, but like you spend a lot of like Assassin's Creed 2 like navigating city-state politics and kind of like going up through like banker families like the Medicis and the Borgias and stuff like that. Going along and interacting with those and kind of I don't know. I learned more about Italy there than I did in my history classes, even though I never took like a specific, an Italy specific
Italian history
course. Yeah.
There's something to be said about like politics as backdrop versus politics as subject matter.
Yes.
In this, and I feel like smarter people than us have already like written those essays.
People who know more history than we do. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's not a strength of mine at all.
Right.
Greg says, recently I was having a conversation with a friend about video game music over the years. I've always loved video game music and have been enjoying it since. Well, to be honest, even before you two were born, smiley face. Anyway, we were discussing favorite game tracks when I realized that about 90% of them are from the 32-bit era and earlier, and that got me wondering why. For whatever reason, I just don't enjoy modern video game music with a few exceptions, such as the Elder Scrolls soundtracks. I can think of a few reasons why that might be. In the old days, due to limited technology, composers had less to work with and had to try harder to make their stuff sound good. We don't pay as much attention to the music because games are bigger and more intense. All the modern game music is orchestral CD-based and doesn't have that unique factor that old games have. Do you think there's any truth to that statement, that most modern video game music sucks, or am I looking at this through rose-tinted glasses?
Sucks is probably a strong word, but I think that, you hit on something that we often talk about in the Dark Souls musical identity series that we've been doing recently, which is eventually when everything is orchestrated, you end up kind of getting more walls than kind of just solid walls instead of handholds and footholds, right? With if you have the ability to just bring in orchestral music, you're not going to have the limitations where you need to work with fewer parts and have distinct melodies and such.
Yeah. There's definitely that, and then also just like the kind of artificiality that comes with technology, that makes video game music sound like video game music.
Yeah.
If you ask somebody for like somebody's doing like a CSI show and you're like, hey, put in some video game music to show people are playing a video game, they're not going to have like Hans Zimmer swells, even though that's what 90% of video game music actually is now. Yeah. They're going to have bleeps and bloops. Because it's video gamey. It's not, it's kind of like there's a line, like a parallel with the production values of other art forms like movies and such, and video games becoming blurred with that also being part of the soundtrack.
Yeah.
You know,
it's difficult because like if you ask somebody who watches movies, like what film has your favorite score? If they know something, they could say like, oh yeah, I love the sound design and There Will Be Blood or something like that. What they might fire back with is, oh, I love the soundtrack in XYZ Coen Brothers movie or something like that. No, not licensed soundtrack, like the actual score, the music that was composed for it. I think that's what you're like running into.
Yeah. Well, and also it's interesting how that comes up with video games as well, where like in 2014, Hotline Miami 100% had the best soundtrack that came out that year, but it was just a bunch of synthwave bands.
Yeah.
Or again, like, Disco Elysium has a great soundtrack, but that's just the band British Sea Power.
Yeah.
Like that's not a score really. That's instrumentals from a band.
God, I've had the music from Whirling in Rags stuck in my head for fucking 2 weeks.
Yeah. The Hostel music's incredible. But yeah, so I don't know. Like, I think that you're right, Greg, that but the way to the place to get away from that, it tends to be indie stuff, which will have more, less cinematic and more identity rich soundtracks.
Yeah.
Also,
indie tracks are generally going to be developed by, or composed and performed by like one person or a few people, so you can follow people around, like Ryan Ike or Disaster Piece.
Yeah. Jake Kaufman.
Yeah.
I will always, I know Jake Kaufman, every soundtrack Jake Kaufman does is worth listening to. And those don't sound to me like indistinguishable from big bland Call of Duty soundtrack stuff.
Big bland.
So, big bland theory. The big bland revival. But I think you're not wrong, Greg.
Yeah. Colin writes, this may certainly be one to avoid, but I would love to hear your thoughts on the recent Chris Avallone news. I know both of you love the games that he has worked on, many of which have been covered on the show. He was even interviewed for an old WAF episode. Personally, the news wrecked me. In the past 2 to 3 years, I've fallen in love with almost everything that he's done. Playing Alpha Protocol, Planescape Torment, Fallout 1 and 2, New Vegas, even though I'm fuzzy on his involvement there, and all of the new Obsidian games like Pillars of Eternity, etc. for the first time. I had even written a specific list of all the games he was credited on and planned to go through them. I was shocked, then upset and angry, but quickly realized it was for selfish reasons. I wanted this creator I loved to be an upstanding person, and he has always seemed this way from public appearance, but it turns out, like a large portion of the games industry, he used his power or clout to take advantage of several women. I guess this is, again, about separating the art from the artist. Will both of you continue to play games he has worked on? I'm sure in time I will, but I will always feel at least somewhat hesitant about doing so, and certainly this puts a dark cloud over some of my all-time favorite games.
There's a good, I mentioned this on Patreon when Colin asked this, but like we'll talk about this, but we did a topic about this generally in 2019. So if you want to hear longer thoughts about it, there's another dispatch where we talk about this, and it was more than a year ago, so it doesn't have modern news as part of it.
Yeah, especially with the recent kind of spate wave of things that have come to light.
Yeah. But it is something we've talked about a lot. And the spate for me has not changed my posture very much on it. Which is that like, this fucking sucks. It's super disappointing. I hate it. Like this is somebody who I liked a lot and who we've talked to and who's really nice. He wrote the foreword for Atomic.
Yeah.
Like I like this dude. But this shit sucks. And now I'm like, no, this is a bad guy who has tons of work to do if he's ever going to join Gen Pop again.
Yeah.
And for me, like I was talking about it in the Slack and like, I was like, what is like the Cosby scale, or what is the scale of which like something is, because we never want to say that there is a difference between shitty things that people do. But I think that there is. Like, there's a difference between, like, what Chris did, which is horrible, fucking absolutely horrible, and then, like, Weinstein or Cosby.
Or
Weinstein or Cosby or something. And for me, it's like if a new game comes out and it's like written by Chris Avellone, like I'm not going to be super excited about that.
No.
But I think that it does a disservice when we take news like this and we're like, yeah, Fallout 2 sucks. Like it was never good. Like
No.
Torment is bad. Like that's not the answer. And it doesn't, we have to let our monsters be complex. You know, like you can be a shitty person and then also be incredibly talented. And when we start divorcing those concepts, we're going to get, we're losing the point. Like we're losing the path.
Yeah.
Like, you know, our monsters, our people who have done shitty things are complicated. They have facets too.
Yeah.
And just sorting somebody and like this thing is bad, this person's bad, everything they've done is bad. They have no value is shitty. That's not me saying like, oh, let's use him for his writing because that's still good. I'm saying we don't have to pretend that history is different than it was.
Yeah.
Because of this. Like to me, these kind of things draw a line and then I move forward. So like,
Yeah.
the brand new game from Chris Avellone is not going to be like really exciting to me right now because I get a queasy feeling in my stomach. But I'm not going to say like, oh yeah, like, you know, Veronica's NPC design in New Vegas was absolute horseshit and I hate that game now. Like to me, that's dumb. It discounts like how many people it takes to make a video game.
Yeah.
You know, it's also disingenuous. It feels like, and I'm not saying Colin is doing this, but in terms of like a tact for when somebody gets outed, like,
This was never
doesn't change
good.
the past.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't, you know, it's okay for somebody to be really talented, but also a bad human being.
Yeah. Two things would be equally disingenuous. It would be disingenuous of me to say that I'm not profoundly disappointed with this going in the future, right? You know,
Yeah.
and whenever Chris Avallone's games come up in the future, you know, I'm probably going to feel the need to say, like, yeah, knowing everything that he has done, like that is complicating my appreciation for this right now, or my ability to praise it, you know, in a way that I did in the past. So it would be disingenuous of me to, you know, not acknowledge that this is disappointing. It would also be disingenuous of me to like go back to the episodes where we praised his games, or even to go back and take down the interview that we did, you know, like,
Yeah.
no, like I can't say that I don't like Alpha Protocol. Alpha Protocol is an amazing video game. You know, like if somebody told me personally, like, yeah, I really don't want you to talk about Alpha Protocol in front of me because it's, you know, it hits at some wounds because I read these stories, et cetera, et cetera. I wouldn't talk about that game in front of that person. Like, you know, my affection for these products does not outweigh any particular person's feelings as regards this kind of stuff. You know, take my toys away, you know, because this is complicated. There are plenty of other games. But yeah, like I'm not able to lie about the way that I feel about a game. I can't say I dislike it now because of new information, you know, that has come forward.
Yeah.
I think it's important what you said, like Chris Avellone, for, you know, even though he is, you know, responsible for a lot of these things that we love, there are also other writers, other scenario developers. You know, the things that I like, particular quest lines in one particular area or a particular, you know, NPC might have been written by somebody else, you know?
Yeah. And largely, you know, like I was a fan of that guy to the degree that I had like the Fallout Bible thing that he made, and I had like a Kinko's printed up. So I have like a book version of it to flip through. And in that, he answers questions about Fallout 2. And a lot of the times he doesn't know, so he just passes off to other people. And it's surprising. Like he'll just be like, I didn't do anything on that area.
Right.
You know, I didn't do anything on that area. Like these works are not just one person's thing. And that doesn't mean that you should ignore the fact that like a monster worked on them, or that a monster has his name on the marquee.
It's more information.
But it's more information. It's complicated. Like, you know, you got to give games and art and being a person like a lot of leeway for being a complicated machine a little bit. And accidents happen, and you can take into account a lot of different stuff. So this doesn't mean, you know, for me, like that is one of the lines I tend to draw is like, you know, how bad is it? Right? Like if I found out that, you know, it had been like Weinstein, like 30 years of gatekeeping exclusive, you know, in the biggest thing in the world, and was doing casting couch shit.
Yeah.
and stuff like that. That would maybe make me feel a little bit differently. Giving the person, supporting them now, like let's say he had a Patreon and I was a patron, like I would be like, no. Like I got to stop doing that.
Yeah.
But I draw the line at being like, yeah, Torment's not one of my favorite games, because it still very much is.
Yeah.
And he's not responsible for all of it. He's responsible for a great deal of it. And I can't argue with that being like a thing that is very important to me and that I really love.
Yeah.
So that is my honest reaction when this kind of shit happens.
There was something you said. I just want to make sure that we clarify it. When you say, this is complicated, accidents happen. Can you clarify what accidents happen means?
Oh yeah. I 100% didn't mean accidents that Chris made.
Right.
Those aren't accidents. I meant accident. What I meant was your relationship to like something I was thinking about, and this is Disco Elysium brain. So forgive me because I keep bringing that up, but it's just like fresh in my head. But like one of the themes of that game is everything is so fucking complicated, and we are like very complicated people who take into account a lot of things and have a lot of kind of stimulus and such like that. So my relationship to art, this revelation about one of the creators of this piece of art that I have is one of many data points. Like it is a very complicated relationship that I have. So it's not so much like accidents happen as the, it is impossible to be perfect. Like only accidents happen.
Right.
Like there isn't a 100% clean way to engage with any of this stuff. No ethical consumption. Et cetera. Yeah.
No, just I figured that's what you meant, but I didn't want that to be taken out of context if somebody heard it. Yeah. I think that just to kind of put a finer point on that, like the creator and the work are neither as loosely connected as one would hope to think, nor as tightly connected as what one might dread to think.
Yes.
Yeah.
A really good example and kind of side version of this, or another thing that's happening is with like J.K. Rowling now, who is coming out full monster turf.
Right.
With this stuff. And it's been really interesting and sad to watch people struggle with that, because there were people, like we both like talked about those books and movies and said that we liked them, like in an abject suffering about it. But there are people who like, it was very meaningful to them, almost spiritually.
They grew up with those books. Yeah.
They grew up with them, and they got lessons from them that they thought were important and stuff. And I don't think that has to be thrown away. Like, I think it's okay to be like, the past is quarantined to what it is. I don't want to support this person. I don't want to give them money, but like those things that you consider really valuable that are part of your life now, you don't have to throw that out. Yeah. Just because of this kind of thing. Like I don't think that J.K. Rowling has the ownership over this to that degree.
Right. This isn't to say that with this new information, a closer critical read about decisions that were made, that those are not valuable.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Which is something that I have seen happening with her. But, like, again, I cannot throw away the car trip where I read the entirety of the first book, like riding back from Myrtle Beach and stuff like that. Not every piece of fruit that falls from a poison tree is poison, and that is not a blanket statement to say that like, no, it's all good, you are absolved, you do not have to feel guilty about how the creation might be tied up with a very problematic creator. But it's just like there's doubt involved.
You just be aware. I do think in a way like you can let yourself off the hook for some of this stuff as long as you're doing the diligence of thinking about it. Think about it, like be very mindful about it, but it's okay to draw a line. Like it's okay to be like, this is, because again, there's nothing's clean, and it almost nothing is clean. Right. And it sucks. But this is how it's going to be. Like, I don't think this is going to go away. No. I think that we're going to, this feels like we're like in Frostpunk when you like go into you're mining trees from the frozen forest. Like these are forests. These are mistakes a lot of the time from years ago. Right. And that doesn't minimize them either. What I'm saying that is more terrifying is that there's an unlimited supply.
Yeah, there is so much past you guys.
It's just going to keep happening. Like this is the Avalon thing, like, really fucking sucked. And it happened at the same time the Warren Ellis thing happened, who's one of my favorite comics writers.
Yeah.
And that was also real hard with that. And it's like, boy, you know, this is just, I just feel like this is the water now.
Yeah.
Like people are going to have to start making those kind of ethical decisions for themselves. And I don't blame anybody whose ethical decision is the second something comes out, I'm done. Mm-hmm. Like all those books go in the trash. Like if that's the decision you make, that's okay. But if you're agonizing over that and you don't want to do that, I think it's okay to recognize, like, you know, give yourself some grace for being ignorant of something you couldn't have known.
Yeah.
You know, in the past, and just throw that giant asterisk on a thing.
Yeah.
You know, like when I play Alpha Protocol again, which I 100% will, I'm going to be like, hey, I know this about the creator. Is this coming through? Do I see it differently?
Yeah.
And if I don't, I'm going to recognize, like, actually that creator is very complicated. He was very talented at writing and really good at the storycraft. He was also, you know, this person who was like grooming, you know, taking advantage of his position.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I kind of don't want to see happen is anytime one of these works is brought up for roving people to come in and remind the person, oh yeah, why are you talking about that thing? Because this person is shitty. Like, I don't that annoys me, and maybe that's not the best instinct, but like, I don't know, if somebody's talking about this, they probably know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's that onion, like the man gets special little thrill out of telling people that John Lennon beat his wife.
Yeah.
You know, like I think about that a lot, is like, you don't want to be that guy. And there's an element of like genuinely informing people.
Yeah, like, hey, you might want to be aware that, like, you don't want to, I don't think you're doing this, but somebody could look at this and say that you're endorsing their behavior by saying you love Planescape Torment.
Totally, you know.
Yeah.
But it also is a thing where if, you know, it's just like no discussion of this thing can happen. It is just real weird and memory holy, and I don't think it does well for the medium or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, is this me or you?
This is you. Yeah.
Mark asks, do you have thoughts on Code Vein? I haven't tried it, but knowing your love of From games and your feelings towards anime, it always seemed like it would be equal parts effective and repellent for both of you, and might make for a fun bonfire episode. Also, I'm struggling for a good equal parts attractive and repellent metaphor to end this comment on, so help me out, fellas. A juicy burger filled with maggots, a beautiful beach vacation where all you can do is file your taxes all day long, etc.
I don't know. A burger cannot, or so I guess a burger. That's weird. That's tough. I think like a
no amount of juice.
Yeah, no amount of juice is gonna make up for the maggots. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't like it to maggot.
No. Yeah, so I can't help you with that. It would be more like a burger, but in between bites, somebody's punching you. Like,
sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, do you want me to answer for the Code Vein thing?
Sure.
Yeah. We're probably not going to cover it. You know, on one hand, it's nice to wait a little bit to see how much of the enthusiasm for a game is just kind of like, because it's new. Like, okay, how long is this? How lasting is this as part of the like Dark Souls like pantheon kind of thing? Code Vein really slipped out of the discussion. And most of the things that I saw at the time, and additionally most of the things that I hear now, is praise for the character creator, which, like, cool. I don't know. I've spent a lot of time in the City of Heroes character creator. Like, I understand the appeal of that. Like, that's fun. Go with God, you know, peace and love and all of that. But the bigger thing is really the aesthetic, that is very repellent. And I think that we would not be serving anybody very well if we went in and played a game that, you know, by all rights, you know, does some mediocre things, but constantly hits you over the back of the head with this very, very strongly stated aesthetic that we are going to be compelled and story that we are going to be compelled to comment on, and people who like anime will you know, be annoyed that we are associating the thing that they like with this, you know, one expression of it. And people who don't like anime probably wouldn't be playing Code Vein, so they wouldn't be listening in the first place.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't think it would serve anybody. Yeah. Like, there's other things with Code Vein too. Like, I've watched a significant amount of people playing it, and like the environments are really, really bland.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's not just that it's anime-y. It's like incredibly story forward. It's really dialogue heavy. The system of like attaching a job-like system onto a Souls-like, it does seem interesting to me.
Yes.
But from what I can understand, it does the thing that Diablo 3 does, where you can just switch out at any time.
Oh.
So like that feels like a menu tax waiting to happen to me, even though people assure me that it's not. But I just don't want to. I have no interest in being in that world.
Yeah.
I'm not hungry for Souls-likes that much. I go back and forth between being like, yeah, like give me all of your, surges, and being like, no, I'm full up on surges. Like I'll wait for another really cool one to come out. And I'm in that phase right now. So no real interest. And I think that you're right about it being a burger and then a punch. Like it can't be something that you do at the same time.
Right.
I was trying to think of something fun that you couldn't look at.
Okay.
Like something you have to experience, but like every time you look at it, it's like, oh, but I couldn't come up with anything super good.
Yeah, it's like a cat that's fun to pet, but when you look at it, like it's got the face, it's got the eyes of your dead wife. Like,
yeah, its face is just a collage of ex-girlfriends.
Yeah.
Like
it's a perfectly good cat, except you can't look at it.
You can't look at it. Yeah, that's how I feel about Code Vein. Like not the kind of game you look at.
It's not one of those looking games.
Yeah, it's not a game that I want to have in my like view. Pretty rough stuff.
Yeah. Let's see here. Brett, let's get this last game question out of here. Brett writes, hearing Gary's idea for an Osmosis Jones type golf game, it got me thinking about novel types of golf games that I might like to see or play. Not sure how y'all feel about Death Stranding, but the idea of an in-engine mod or some such to allow me to hit the links as Sam and Kojima's Scottish Links style version of America just seems so rad to me. I'm curious to hear which game or game engine y'all think would make for a good golf time. Channeler teeing off at Ash Lake, anyone?
A big sand trap.
It's
one big ash trap.
Just a big bunker. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although there are those little pits where the clams fuck.
That's the clam fucking pits. I do like the idea of Souls golf.
Yep.
That's pretty fun. Like even just a visual theming.
Yeah.
Like a Souls mini golf where every hole is a different area. In terms of themes, that's a really good idea.
Yeah. Just with the same desolate tone.
Yeah. Just in the same sad music.
Yeah.
And stuff. That's a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
You got it, Brett.
I'm playing and enjoying Death Stranding right now. And that is actually really like a good idea. Considering that one of the best parts about going and golfing is the walk. And because that is a game that is kind of about the joy of walking to a certain extent, and navigating, I'm kind of surprised that isn't an option that was built in. But yeah, that would be pretty good. I like that idea.
I'm not that surprised it's not an option that was built in. Aren't there like stakes and demons, and like if a dead person comes up, it causes a nuclear explosion and stuff? Like
it's got a lot. It's got a lot of weird stuff going on. Yeah. Like everything seems equally likely and unlikely to be included.
Genius. Moving on to life questions. Nicholas asks, "Hey guys, I don't know really where else to turn to ask this. Don't answer if you don't think it's appropriate." Let me read this real quick, Cole.
Okay.
I have not pre-skimmed this. Sorry. That caveat got me scared.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Nicholas asks, "Hey guys, I don't know where else to ask this. Don't answer if you don't think it's appropriate for the show. My brother has recently been suffering from depression, and I'm at a loss on what to do for help. I try to be there for him and always be open for listening, but he has a stone wall and shuts down whenever our family asks what's going on, how we can help. I understand it's an internal battle and struggle. Being privileged and not suffering any mental condition myself, it's frustrating being an outsider when you feel so helpless and seeing someone you love struggle with it and not be able to help. Any suggestions or advice from your perspective would be helpful."
Two huge things at the start here. We are not mental health professionals. We are both
caveats,
people,
baby.
Yeah, we are both people who deal with this, and every case of depression is different. It is not monolithic. There are different types, different expressions. Second, if you have any inkling that your brother, and this goes for anybody close to you, might be close to harming themselves, do whatever you can to get the authorities involved to stop that from happening. there are resources that you can reach out to that can, help you there.
Yeah. And I would say start with like, hotlines and mental health.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Like when you say the authorities, don't necessarily automatically go to the police.
No, don't call
like
the cops on them.
Yeah, don't call the cops.
Don't
like
do that.
the authorities should stop being code for the cops, but
yes,
that is kind of how it works now. And there's a lot of very good relevant discourse about how they're not trained for that.
Yeah. No, I should have chosen a different, chosen a better word.
Yeah. Good, but tag and help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I guess non-podcaster help. Is the I think what Cole meant.
Mm-hmm.
That's just stuff. I wish I knew how old.
Yep.
This person was, because like a kid being kind of like if this is a teen.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing. It doesn't mean that it's any less important or there's any less like potential for harm.
Yeah.
But I think that the teens do get moody.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of inward, and that makes sense for me. As an adult who's doing that, I think you're doing it if you're just like reaching out and trying to ping them and let them know that you're there and trying to help them out. I think you're doing it.
Yeah.
You can suggest that they take other measures, like, hey, if you want to talk to somebody. And one thing to keep in mind that I think is concrete advice is that I think in the depths of depression, sometimes things that be very simple are actually incredibly hard.
Yes.
Such as Googling. Or filling out a web form or calling somebody.
Yes.
So offering to do those things might be very helpful. Or even just taking like, hey, like you obviously don't sign him up for anything,
right?
But you could say like, hey, like, listen, I know you're going through some stuff. And I know maybe money is a thing, but I did some research and figured out what our county has for like free mental health stuff. And here's this guy, I vetted him. Like, he seems like he's like pretty good. Here's his number and email address. Would you want me to set up an appointment?
Yeah.
Is that interesting to you? Don't push it, but just be like, I can do the legwork. I can do the little task stuff that seems impossible when you're depressed.
Yeah.
Including like Googling and researching and stuff like that. I think a lot of times people feel like that stuff doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And it's because they can't look for anything. They're not in that place.
Yeah. I can only speak from my own perspective on this, but when things got real bad for me about like 5 years ago, and I've really dealt with this, pretty much my entire life, but there are flare ups and things like that. In the very depths of it, what I felt simultaneously was I wanted to isolate. I didn't want to get anybody else involved. I pretty much just wanted to be in bed, and not be in contact with anybody. And outreach felt like an imposition. Outreach also felt like it was wrapped up in guilt as well. Like, why are you not seeking help? Why did you stop taking medication in the past? Like, don't you see what you're doing to yourself? This is, distressing to me. Again, like, depression is insidious because it literally changes the way you experience the world and changes the way you interpret what other people are doing, right? It changes their motivations no matter what they say, so understand that may be something that you're working against, that your brother really just like might want to be alone until he doesn't want to be alone, and might feel guilty until he realizes he would be doing it for himself. Those should be things to take into account. But I think that for me, the help that I needed was when I decided this is going too far. When I made the phone call, this is when I was living in Cincinnati, and all of my family, lives up here in Central Ohio where I live now. And I didn't want to go to a new doctor. Like, I any of those things, I needed to get into my current doctor, at the up here in Central Ohio. Like, I needed to do that. The help that I needed was when I made the call, I had family members drop everything and come and get me, so I wouldn't have to drive up myself. I had them take care of me the couple of days that I needed to wait until I got in and got my medicine and all of that. So, like, I think that you're doing the right stuff by being available for him, but understand that, like, there is a certain amount of, amount of waiting that needs to happen for if he decides that this is something you can be there ready to swoop in.
Yeah. Yep. It can be, it comes in its own time.
Yeah.
and the frustration you're feeling is really natural as well.
Yeah.
Feeling helpless is like the shortest path to frustration, like seeing a problem and not feeling like there's anything you can do.
Yeah.
And even harder, like having the things you're trying to do be pushed away is very difficult.
Yeah.
But that's just, you're going to take that on because it's your brother and you love him. It's, that's kind of the way it is. I don't know. I don't have any tips for getting over that other than just, recognizing that it's hard, giving yourself some grace.
Yeah.
If it's a situation in your family where you're the only person, doing this, see if you can tag in some help. It doesn't sound like it. It sounds like the rest of your family is also involved based on this just, brief paragraph. So that is good.
Yeah.
But feel free to tag in people.
Yeah. Tag in help. But also do not make it feel like that they are surrounded at this point, or that everybody's talking about them, or like, oh my gosh, what is their opinion of me that everybody thinks that I'm this kind of like understand the way that it might look to a person who is probably paranoid about what people's motivations are about them.
Yeah. It's hard. It's
very hard. Like,
bad position. I hope things get better.
Yes.
And take all of that again as a grain of salt. That's just our personal opinions. It's not anything more than that. So,
yeah. Cinderelf says, I just listened to the Inside the Battle of Portland episode on the Worst Year Ever podcast. As a Portlandite, does Gary have any personal insight regarding what is going on there at the moment?
I'm currently recording this episode from inside a black bag.
Okay.
In the back of a van.
Yep.
Having been extrajudicially kidnapped by my government.
Yeah. No. Perfectly normal. Yeah, no, I'm having to do an awful lot of like filter work to get the sound of the jackboots out of the background there.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's tough stuff. Well, also the sound of me just absolutely licking them, like going to town like I'm a teenager eating ass, like just licking these boots, dude.
Yeah.
Like I'm on Tumblr and I eat ass and I lick boot. There's 3 things you gotta know about me. No, it's real horrible, but it's not in terms of my day to day. I appreciate the concern. I have stayed bunked up basically in my house. It's about 40 blocks. For me is where stuff 40 blocks in either direction. There's 2 major epicenters of this stuff. It's downtown, the Justice Building, and then it's the Police Union Hall, both of which one is about 40 blocks west, one is about 40 blocks north.
The former Police Union Hall.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it didn't totally burn down.
Oh, okay.
They just had a little fire. There's a lot of misinformation going out about there, largely from the authorities.
Yep.
They put out a thing saying like our Union Hall was set on fire. That's not my understanding of it based on...
Well, like a curtain caught on fire or something like that.
It's still, the building stands.
Yeah.
So I am about 40 blocks away from it. I don't go to the grocery store anymore, or restaurants. I do everything through delivery. I go over to my girlfriend's house a couple times a week, which is just a few blocks.
Yeah.
So I have been pretty safe, and it hasn't hit down here, other than just like helicopters and bangs every night.
Right.
At sleep. So it's not great, but I don't, I'm okay. I'm safe.
Yeah. And it's worth saying that the average person who lives in Portland is more in danger from the police than anybody who the police might say is a danger to them.
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah.
Like that
just
is
so
wild,
it's clear.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like there was that, I think it was the Oregonian put out that thing recently, which was like, walking through Portland during the day and those contrasts with like a Fox News report that makes it seem like it's Thunderdome over here, or it's like Escape from New York.
Yeah.
There are not roving gangs of maniacs here. That's so far from the actual truth. Like what it is every night, thousands of people, most of which are not like black mask Antifa people. They're just people are showing up to protest.
It's a bunch of moms is what I've seen recently.
That was last night. Yeah. Last night there was like a big thing, this organization of moms who put themselves between the protesters and the police. But like my friend Chris, who did the Spec Script podcast, who guested during Duckfest 1, has gone down there and live streamed. I've been watching him every night.
Nice.
And it's just, they go and they stand there and they chant and they do shit like that. And people like, definitely shit's getting knocked over and some stuff's getting spray painted. And then the police show up and then the DHS shows up and tear gasses everybody and then they go. And that has been kind of the loop. It's not like during the day you can't push your baby in a cradle because some, maniac's going to want a California cheeseburger. Like it's not the protesters. Like
Right.
it is the fact that you can't go downtown. Like going downtown, there's munitions everywhere on the ground. I haven't been, but I've seen a bunch of people finding them. There's like a thread where it's like, hey, show me the munition you find on the ground and I'll tell you where it came from on Twitter, because we live in hell.
Yeah.
And like, those aren't coming from protesters.
No.
Like protesters are not bringing guns to this or weapons, really.
Yeah.
It's all shields. It's there's all this stuff about how to make a shield.
Right.
It is a purely defensive thing. So yeah, it's no good. It's taking up a lot of brain space.
Yeah.
For me, and it's real weird that it's that close. Like I am safe, but 40 blocks is not that far.
No.
It is a real weird feeling. Like I could walk there pretty easy.
And I say this living in a small town where this is unlikely to happen, but this is coming to a city near you. This is a testing ground for bringing this kind of response to other cities. Portland is a theater right now.
Yeah, openly.
Yeah.
Like he's just saying like, yeah, we're trying to protect Portland, and then just going to, we're planning to do this on other towns, and we already have. Like there's no hiding it or anything. So yeah, it's no good. It's super no good. It's really horrible. Yeah. It is like travesty after travesty. Like, and it drives me fucking nuts that like when I read that article and it showed like the Fox News report, and I'm like, it's a lie. Like I can look out my window, and like I'm right here. There are not roving gangs of dangerous protesters. Like it's just not happening.
Right.
Like I am here, and it drives me crazy just to be like, some of those fuckers put that on TV.
Lying about the city that you live in and love. Like
it's real weird. Like you can. It is a matter of opinion whether like you can. It's not. I don't think it's the correct opinion, but somebody could say like, yeah, people are gathering and the police are okay to break it up.
Right.
Like that's okay. Like I don't agree with that, but that's something that there's room for disagreement about. That's like an opinion thing. But it is objectively not true that there are dangerous roving gangs of protesters who are hurting people. Like that is just categorically untrue. Like you can argue whether you think the police are justified in making people go home.
Right.
But you can't argue that like, yeah, you're really in danger of getting like, I don't know, like Escape from New York from like being downtown here because of citizens.
Yeah.
When the opposite is actually true. Like there's just tons of video footage of people being brought into vans by unidentified officers, like driven around for 90 minutes and then photographed and released.
Right.
Detained for terrorism reasons, for like to harass and terrorize them.
Yeah.
It's really rough.
Yeah. This is also the culmination of a huge project to cast Portland as a particular kind of place. Like even a couple of years ago when I told a family member, like, yeah, I'm headed out to Portland this fall. Like they said, oh, watch out for Antifa. And I was like,
it's
okay,
such a ludicrous thing to say.
I
don't blame them, but like that is so fucking silly because like, it's not a JRPG. I'm not walking around and getting into random encounters with Antifa.
Yeah. And I told them like I'm anti-fascist, so it's probably going to be okay for me.
Yeah.
It just weird. It just weird, the narrative.
Yeah, it's weird, and another word for it is tragic and infuriating.
Yes,
it's really bad. So Portland is like, this is not a hellhole. It is not Escape from New York. I have no vested interest in lying about that. I'm not on the tourism board or anything. It just don't believe people who say that is what's going on.
Yes. Yeah. Let's see here. Do we want to do more life questions, or do we want to move on to a different?
Let's switch over to media show zone.
We can do this one because it'll be real quick. Dan asks, who's your favorite unsung, quote, shredder? I assume referring to guitarists. Mine would be Jason Becker, Cacophony, etc. Taken down by an illness at 20, but amazing songs. Speed Metal Symphony. Also, do you like brown sauce in your sausage sandwich? Hopefully that's not just a British thing.
It's an extremely British thing, my man.
Yeah.
I don't know what any of those things mean in relation to each other.
I don't know that I've had like a sausage sandwich. I'm not going to get into like a hot dog thing.
I mean, it's clear, like it's like a breakfast sandwich is what I'm thinking of, like a biscuit, like a sausage biscuit.
Oh, gotcha.
And then could brown sauce be like a gravy?
Mate, I don't know. Let me see here. What is brown sauce? It's brown and water.
Computer, show me brown sauce.
Bring me a brown sauce.
Computer, I'm looking for something in a breakfast sauce.
Brown sauce is a condiment served with food in the United Kingdom and Ireland, normally dark brown in color. The ingredients vary: tomatoes, molasses, dates, apples, tamarind, spices, vinegar, sometimes raisins. So it sounds like yeah. So
like a ketchup.
Yeah, it's almost like a mixture of like ketchup, barbecue sauce, and Worcestershire sauce.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. I think that if I were in a place that served it and I was getting a sausage sandwich, which I have no objections to, liking both sausage and sandwiches, I would get it with that sauce.
Yeah.
I would definitely give it a try. That sounds good to me.
Mm-hmm. As for shredders, that's not really a type of music that I really enjoy, like speed metal kind of stuff. Like I've got guitarists that I like, I'm pretty open about liking Queens of the Stone Age. I think Josh Homme is very good. And an unconventional kind of guitarist who's kind of in that vein, but yeah, I don't know that I would qualify him as a shredder or anybody else who I really enjoy as a shredder, while also understanding why people enjoy and look at that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I tend not to be super into that either, like guitar heroics, but I like the guitar heroics of, say, like Built to Spill or Dinosaur Jr., which are both very guitar focused, and there's a mild amount of shred, but it's not fast shredding, as I am not a metal man.
I am not metal man.
I am not metal man. I'm not Metal Cat Mario. Mm-hmm. Kellerak asks, I know you both expressed liking Tim and Eric. Have you watched anything by Eric Andre? I feel like their styles are similar, and I wanted to hear if you had any takes on them. I love Eric Andre.
Yep.
Yes. I don't feel like they're that similar, honestly, but I do think that they're both very good.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I've mostly like watched clips or whatever, like him straight up bringing the heat on Flava Flav for supporting, what's his name? Oh gosh. Oh, Fareed, or just blah, blah, for the Farrakhan. Yeah. For supporting Farrakhan. Like that is incredibly funny to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
would you say that Margaret Thatcher utilized girl power when she, that kind of shit's extremely good?
Yeah. Yeah. It's been on my list. I've added it on Hulu to poke around more and watch like full episodes of it. But yeah, everything that I've watched has been very good.
I find him much more hostile than Tim and Eric, and he also interfaces with reality more.
No.
In kind of like a Sacha Baron Cohen kind of way.
Yeah.
Like he goes and like the video of him going to the Republican National Convention is funny, but also kind of scary and hostile.
Yeah.
There's like a scariness energy to it that I never really feel with Tim and Eric, or like when I do, it's more unnerving.
Right.
And more on purpose. Like Eric Andre is seems very aggressive to me in a way that Tim and Eric don't.
Yeah.
But I like them both very much.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Moving on to show questions. Joseph asks, or no, I asked the last one. This one's you.
Oh, here we go. Joseph asks, hello, just subscribed recently, and I'm really loving the shows. Keep it up. In reference to Disco Elysium, I really wanted to play the game until I saw that the developer had a picture of Stalin hanging in their office. As a history teacher in the UK, this made me feel so uncomfortable that I couldn't bring myself to buy the game. Is this reasonable? I know people have been having similar issues when it comes to The Last of Us 2 and Naughty Dog's work practices, but have you ever been put off playing or covering a game because of the developer? Did you think about this before covering Disco Elysium?
This kind of rolls into that earlier stuff.
A little bit, yeah.
Art and artist thing a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like that.
So I wasn't aware that they had a picture of Stalin up. I've not seen anything in the game so far. Gary, you've beaten it. I'm probably about halfway through based on play clock. I've not seen anything where they're like straightforward saying, yes, Stalin was right.
It's actually the opposite. Like they're incredibly critical about like the history of communism. Mm-hmm. Like the game does not to me, like the game is we talk about politics as backdrop. Like it is a political game, but it's also a game that's more about like what kind of human do you want to be, and what does humanity look like in the face of these systems, as kind of the backcasting.
Yeah.
So that definitely doesn't come through in the game.
Right.
Like I'm sure that they are leftist, like they're, the Chapo people do voices in the game and stuff, but it's not, I don't think that they are pro, mass death in any way.
Yeah. No. So to answer that specifically, I would not be down with, supporting a work that was like pro-Stalinism. Fuck that.
Yeah. I've seen a bunch of I feel like there is an element of people, like most of these smart left people who I know who identify as communist are not like super down with Stalin. And not super down. Like there are like kind of caricature ones who
they're tankies who are,
who are into like, yes, that went well. I think most people who I know who are into communism are like, this is a beautiful idea, and it should not just go down go down the drain because of the way it's articulated, given that like these other ideas that are less beautiful, are also like, it's not like capitalism is doing good.
Right.
People are also suffering under that. They're just suffering under different ways. Like, I think that is the perspective of the game. And that's been the perspective of most like the smart left-leaning people who I know.
Yeah.
And I think that like, having a picture of Stalin up in the office, what I imagine is that's them being irony fucks.
Yeah. More than anything,
that like them, like, I bet you they consider that to be like a puckish sense of humor. More than anything.
And also they're in Estonia, so they've got a lot of skin in the game as regards, living right next to this and living right next to, and I believe being part of the Soviet Union.
Yeah. Yeah. There might be a little element of like reclaiming, or it's not something like I could do, like as just, this white American dude. It'd be real weird for me to do that. Yeah. But maybe they have a little bit more justification in that. So, in terms of in general, like knowing something about the developer and not playing a game, that's happened to me only really with small indie games where it's like one person.
Yeah. What was the like Ion Fury or whatever?
Carter. Yeah, Ion Fury is the one. Ethan Carter, which is apparently like a really good game, but the guy is a shithead.
Yeah,
and it's basically him, so I don't want to give him money. But with labor practices, with that stuff, like I don't. In general, like I think that shit sucks, but I haven't decided to boycott anything based on it. Through the nature of me is like I'm not huge supporters of that stuff anyway.
Like that doesn't tend to create the kind of games that you're super excited to play outside of like CD Projekt Red stuff.
Yeah, which like even that I'm probably not going to get day and date because I'm intimidated by it. Like I'm interested in that, obviously, but I'm also not hungry for like a 300-hour thing, ever. So yeah, that tends not to put me off too much, but I think it's good to be aware of. Like, I don't like the labor practice shit. It just has not made me boycott because I'm naturally boycotting.
Right.
I'm not buying them anyway. So
yeah.
Moving on to Matt. Matt says, what game, consoles, or handhelds do you have immediately available to play WoF games on? What is your general policy on using emulation as opposed to original hardware?
Fine with emulation. Don't really feel too much compunction about that, especially if save states are going to be helpful. Stuff that we have on hand, like both of us have PS4s and Switches, both of us have Vitas. Both of us at 3DS. Least have DS, 3DS. Both of us have access to 360s and PS3s. Yeah,
I think we have the same systems generally. I have a couple other like dumb handhelds that we're not going to do games on.
Right.
Like we're not going to do Neo Geo Pocket games, but I do have a Neo Geo Pocket. So, and I like emulation. I like playing everything on PC if I can help it.
Yeah,
that is my preference. PC or Switch.
Yes.
I either want to be laying in bed or sitting at my computer, and no points in between, which comes from living in a one-room house.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's see here. And is this you or me? I know we recently.
This is you.
This will be me. So last show question here. Marcus writes, maybe you've answered this before, but what made you guys come up with Abject Suffering? It's not like WoF, where it's just an extension of talking about games that you like and sharing that with the world. How does one say, well, let's make a podcast where we play things that mostly aren't fun, and somehow make it fun to listen to? I love Abject Suffering and your other content, so I've always wondered what the thought process was.
It's a good question.
I don't even know if I know the answer myself.
No, we originally were going to dunk on bad games. Mm-hmm. The way that happens on the internet.
Yep.
And then we got to one where we had nothing to say about it. The original concept was like dunk on bad games and let people put them in the pot and randomize which ones we picked. And then we got to Knights of the Round or whatever, and there was like nothing to say.
Right.
And it's just like, what's in the news today? Like, what else do we talk about? There's always been like room for digressions, but that is the fulcrum on which the show became digression heavy and kind of became a free form.
And that was early. Like that was like episodes in the early 30s.
Yeah. I think it's even earlier than that. That one possibly, but it happened pretty quick. And then at that point, me and Cole don't have a show where we don't, or where we just talk. Mm-hmm. So the show kind of became that. And then also, a prompt. Yeah. Like the way I think of games for that show is as a prompt. Mm-hmm. And that's really it. Yeah. Like, I don't feel any kind of like obligation in that show. Mm-hmm. Somebody wrote in and they were like, hey, you guys did something I really like finally, and you guys didn't talk about it, and it's that's not their fault. No, we don't do a good job of explaining what the show is, right or anything, and that's happened before. A couple times too, and it's just like, no, it's not, it's the place where duty dies. Yeah. It's not that kind of thing, right. It is its own thing. Mm-hmm. So
it started as one thing, and then it just kind of became the show that we felt like we wanted to do, the show that was fun to do, and the show that people responded to. Yeah. And people, people seem to like it, and for people for whom it is not for them, that's okay. Yeah. We understand.
Yeah. It does not hurt our feelings. Yeah. Let's do the lightning round real quick.
Yeah.
Ian says, what is the conservative right-wing idea perspective you find the most compelling? Meaning you do not have to agree with it, but you find the idea perspective interesting enough to be worth considering.
I was, not hopeful, but I was intrigued that Donald Trump kind of ran on pulling back out of military engagements. Obviously, he had no intention of fulfilling that and has been a horrible mess otherwise. But yeah. Skepticism about military involvement abroad and large international trade deals, that became a part of the platform, and I was curious but skeptical, and I'm sure they're going to discard it going forward.
Yeah. That's a good one. We do, I think that somebody phrased the inversion of this at one point, like, what is the leftist idea you can't get behind? Yeah. And that was easier because it's like, I'm all in on like, police meaning something totally different. Yeah. But I haven't read enough about abolishment to get on board, and same thing with prisons. Like, I want to read more about that. Like, it's not that I think that it's not the case, but I want to read more about it. Yeah. But that the inverse is not true. It's not like the conservative position that we should brutalize the criminals is something I'm like, seems like a good idea. Like, that should 100% be the case. So I'm going to say yours, like, foreign involvement. Like, I don't know. I don't necessarily even think of that as like a conservative idea.
It historically is not. Like, it's a thing. It's a thing that both parties always like accuse the other of doing too much of when they're in power.
But and they both, everyone does it. Like, we're never going to get our finger out of those fucking pies. Right. So maybe none. Maybe none of those ideas are good.
Like, it's really hard to think of an economic policy.
Ideas.
Yeah. I mean,
you have no good conservative ideas.
Yeah. The only Republicans that I probably agree with wholeheartedly are the radical Republicans in the Reconstruction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't think those are good ideas.
No.
Don't seem very kind. Don't seem very humanist. Like, don't seem like they want the best for all. Yeah. Public good. I'm very, very into.
Mm-hmm. Same.
Call me crazy.
Yeah. Todd writes, you guys joke about backdoor WAFs on Abject Suffering, but is there a game you've already covered that you would actually consider featuring on WAF? Personally, I'd love a Bad Mojo WAF.
I think a Bad Mojo WAF would be tough just because I think we covered a lot of it.
We did, yeah.
In that episode. And there's like the two classic ones. There's like Bad Mojo and then Contradiction.
Contradiction's a good one, yeah.
Yeah, Contradiction is just a WAF episode, basically. So, I don't know. Like every once in a while, like something like that will come up and we'll say it in an episode, but it's hard for something to come to mind for me.
Goonies 2 was another one where we're like, yeah, covering this here because a patron demanded it doesn't mean we're not going to cover it on WAF elsewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot about that one. I would like to do Goonies 2 at some point. That would be difficult, but I think it'd be fun because it's a hostile game, but it's cool.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good answer. I'm just coattailing on all your answers on.
That's fine. Don't worry.
This one because I ran out of brain juice.
I had a little bit of an advantage because when I compiled the list here, I kind of thought of answers. So don't worry.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm certainly not worried about it. Holland says, for the rest of WAF and Abject Suffering's life, you can own as many consoles and actual titles as you want, but as far as emulators and ROMs go, you can only have one console. Which console do you choose to steal, you dirty pirates? So one emulator.
One emulator. That's tough.
That is tough.
Yeah.
Because so here's my boy, that's tough.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you go for availability or do you go for convenience?
Yeah. Is it guaranteed to work entirely?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, my instinct wants to say like PS2. And the reason why is because it's such a pain to haul out my PS2. But that's not a good reason.
No.
But that's my instinct. It's like I hate hooking that thing up. Like,
yeah. And like my instinct is to say like Super Nintendo or the PlayStation, but really like I like the best of those things.
And those things are available on mini consoles and virtual consoles.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a stumper.
Yeah, this is a real stumper. But as far as emulators and ROMs go, okay, so which if we're assuming this is for the show and for enjoyment, which console generation would benefit the most from save states? Because that is the killer feature if we can have everything else. Yeah. That's
a good question, or that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Probably the Nintendo.
Yeah.
NES. Like Super Nintendo was a very close second.
Yes. Yeah, let's say NES.
Yeah. But yeah, what a horrible choice you've given us. What does Chaos Trigger say?
Chaos Trigger says, I saw remarks in the Slack about songs based on video games. I wonder where you guys stand when it comes to video game music covers and remixes. There's a lot of very cool stuff on OC Remix, as long as you can avoid like the, half-hour long EDM super mix, where everything just kind of sounds the same.
Yeah. I don't listen to those.
No.
But yeah, I have no problem with video game music covers. I like the mini bosses and the Advantage and bands that do that. I think that's cool. I just don't like it when someone's like, I wrote this song about a video game. And I don't like it when someone takes video game music and then makes up lyrics about the video game to the video game music.
No.
I find that stuff embarrassing. Or as kids say, cringy. But really embarrassing is what they mean.
Yes.
So embarrassing is a perfectly good word.
Yep. We have that. You do not need to make a new one.
No. Mark says, I can't remember if you already covered this one, so apologies up front if it's a repeat. Which book/film/game would you like but struggle to recommend to others?
I mean, I don't know that I have an answer for all three, but classic answer is Pathologic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to watch. I will watch things with my girlfriend, and it's hard when something is like particularly intense and dark.
Yeah,
like I'm sure that she would end up digging Breaking Bad, but it's also like that goes to some dark places. Like, that's one of the things I love about it. Mm-hmm. But you have to really be okay with that. So, like, for me, this stuff tends to come in with like Appetite of Darkness stuff. Like, are you going to enjoy There Will Be Blood? Like, it is a really dark movie without a lot of hope in it, and that's kind of stuff I dig. So things like that generally.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking at a Blu-ray copy of The Mist here. Like, I wouldn't give that to somebody unless I knew they were having a very good day or a very bad day.
Yeah. or they just like the monster movies.
Well, yeah,
like there's a you can detach from the mist as well if it's not gonna you can make that not touch your heart.
Yep.
Yeah. If you want to. And then finally, this is you.
That's Matt says, any misconceptions about the show that you don't think someone will ever ask about? Something the average listener doesn't know that they don't know. This is tough. I think that especially if somebody is new to the show, first, they're probably not listening to this, so they wouldn't hear it. But if they're new to the show, like, I think that it would be important to get across that, yes, we really do play these games, like all of them,
Yes.
It is not just a survey course like like a number of other, retro games, podcast kind of stuff sometimes end up being. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and that's that's not those other you can do a survey course and have it be great.
Yeah,
we're not. There's absolutely no shade.
that is not like hidden just shade on Retronauts or whatever. There's just different shows.
I didn't feel like you were shading on. Yeah, different shows. I think it does cause a different perspective that may or may not be something you like. Like we've definitely had people listen to the show before, and like we have a couple like 3-star reviews that are like, why is this just them saying what happens in the game?
Right.
And it's like, well, it's like a book club,
Yeah.
We talk about it when it pops up. So that's a misconception in terms of people who actually listen, who might not understand stuff. I think that sometimes people don't understand the degree to which, like, when we're in comedy mode, there is some character stuff going on. Like,
oh yeah.
We both exaggerate for humor a lot of the time. So like every once in a while, and this is my own ego speaking, right? Like, but somebody will be like, say something I said on purpose to be funny as if I said it on accident.
Oh yeah.
And I'd be like, no, I knew I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that again, that's like an ego thing, but it's true. Like, I've been doing this for a little while. I know how to make a laugh at my own expense on purpose.
Right.
Or offer up a premise, or throw a premise into a fire on purpose.
Right. Because it will be the funny thing to do in the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
So an intentional misread, just like taking a position that you don't necessarily believe in just because it'll be fun for the conversation, etc.
Yeah. So there's some of that stuff. Like, I think in general, there's not a whole lot of difference between show Gary and real Gary, but there is a little bit of a difference. And, it comes through in comedy mode more than anything.
Yeah. During, I think, the Mario Golf episode, I said large hard-on collider instead of large hadron collider, which was absolutely a joke. And somebody just posted a comment saying, quote, large hard-on collider. I don't know if they knew it was a joke or not. And like, they were just saying like, yeah, that was funny. I want to say the joke back, which is cool. Or if they were like, wow, that was a dumb thing to say. No, I know it's a large hadron collider. It's just funny to say it the other way.
But it can also be a dumb thing to say. Yeah. Like that, but it can also be funny and on purpose. It can be all those things.
Yeah.
But in general, like, there is a lot of like instinct that goes into at least the way that I approach like podcasting, like very little planning, but it's also not it's not that it like a lot of accidents are happening. There's some, but it's a lot of that stuff is on purpose. Yeah. Which could be very damning to you. Like, if you're listening to this and you're like, I'm giving them a lot of grace. Like, they just, they always talk about how tired and depressed they are. Of course they're making mistakes. And we're here telling you like, they're not mistakes actually.
Yeah.
Like, we're tired, depressed, and we do that on purpose. Yeah. Like, it's somehow worse.
These things that bother you, they delight us. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It can definitely go either way.
Right.
So.
Oh man. Let's do the topic.
Yeah, let's do the topic.
Let's see here. So I will take this. The topic this month, David writes in, with all the terrible things going on in the world these days, and especially since many of those things are hitting very close to home for a lot of us, I've been appreciating games as a brief escape from reality. Whether it's a few hours in the national park in Firewatch or a longer visit to Lordran, anything that can just help me get away for a while has been greatly appreciated. While I'm not advocating for using games to run away from your problems, it is nice to have a comfortable place to go. So I have 2 questions for you guys. 1. What role do games play personally in escapism for you, and how do you feel about escapism in general? 2. If you tend to escape via games, what are some of your favorites to slip into when the real world gets to be too much?
Yeah, this was asked as a normal question, but we promoted it to topic because we're talking about escapism in general. Makes sense, and also with the increasingly, pure black world tendency going on.
Satsuki's standing right out in front of my house, just banging bottles together.
Yep. Yeah, it's there's all kinds of doors that are open now that weren't open before. But yeah, because things are so dark, this is something that I've been thinking about.
Yeah,
a lot.
Yeah.
I'll start with an idea.
Okay.
About this. It's not directly in relation to the question, but it's something that that made me want to talk about this topic. Mm-hmm. Is that I spent the majority of my life having what I think is kind of common, which is a minor derision at the idea of escapism.
Yes.
Which tends to go hand in hand with any kind of chauvinism about art. Mm-hmm. In trying to draw the line between serious art and pop art or things like that, genre pieces, things like that. And recently, and I have almost 180'd and let myself off the hook for that entirely. Mm-hmm. In kind of my life arc of in general, being kinder to Gary. But it plays into this. I think that I was wrong to look down my nose at the idea of escapism or have any kind of negative association with something that's actually an incredibly useful tool.
Yeah.
And really, really valuable. And also just kind of feels good and owns. And realizing that things that feel good that are non-productive are not also have their place.
Yes.
Was kind of a hard lesson for me as somebody who who my tastes are part of my identity and who can be snobby about things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that for me, I definitely had a lot of the same attitude, and I've come around that the ability to find escapism, not just in games, but I read to calm down. Just any number of those things where leaning on internal worlds, for lack of a better idea or word for this, or leaning on media as part of a let's say diverse quiver of coping strategies, especially when things get really hard. That is absolutely a vital survival skill. I think.
Yeah.
Where most of the time when I have really bucked against the idea that games function as escapism is when somebody says something along the lines of the only purpose that this serves should be escapism. There's an element in here that reminds me of a problem in the real world, and therefore that runs counter to what this thing should be. Sure. This is something that you run into with people who say, why are you forcing politics into this thing? Can't you just let a game be a game? I think that is a toxic impulse that can lead to a lot of bad places, similar to the way that nostalgia can be used as a weapon to lead to a lot of bad places. But like nostalgia, escapism is something that I've really come around on as being, not negative, value neutral at the least, and value positive possibly in some circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah, there are kind of two sides of it. There's the intellectual discourse side that scoffs at escapism, and is because we're a games podcast, we'll talk about this through the frame of games, but it talks it speaks to everything. But are just it is dumb to want to have the fireworks factory. It is stupid to and less artful to want to play this game that has fun shooting. Mm-hmm. And is fun to go do this thing. Yeah. And then you also run into people who are games should only be that.
Right.
And neither is right. Not to, centrist it up, but it's neither true that no game should be that or all games should be that.
Yeah. Different things serve different purposes, I think that both Doom 2016 and Disco Elysium are essential
Yeah.
Right.
Just different essential for different things.
Yeah.
And you have to be like recognizing in yourself, like when you need or want one of those medicines is the work, like that's the humanity. That's like being a person and having a relationship with art, where you can say like, I'm ready. I want something enriching. Like, give me something to chew on and nutritive, and that is going to challenge me, and I'm going to have to bring myself into.
Yeah.
And that's a mode. Like, that's a mood or a mode you can be in. It is not inherently virtuous, and it's also not inherently sinful or like bad to never be in that mode.
Yeah.
Like those people who are saying like, why do you have to put this in video games? The reason why they're wrong isn't because they don't want to play games with politics in it. It's because they're saying they shouldn't exist and can't just be happy playing, eating swimming in a different part of the pool.
Right.
It's okay to just like, this isn't what I come to this for. Like one of the things I'm realizing, like I love reading. In general, I don't come to books for incredibly challenging, crunchy, like, Gravity's Rainbow shit.
Yeah.
I've tried. It doesn't work for me. It's not my relationship with reading. It doesn't feel good to me. I don't like it. And you can make the argument like, oh, just like buckle up and take your medicine. And it's, like I say, like about everything, no, I take my medicine elsewhere.
Yeah.
I just get medicine other ways. It's okay. There's knowing that you're in the mode and knowing what things you want for that is like an important part of self-knowledge. I will play a Disco Elysium, which I think is crunchy and has a lot of emotional depth, or I'll watch like a movie like that I think has a lot of emotional depth and is crunchy and has a lot of, incredibly like, challenging and like kind of intellectual themes.
Yeah.
And books, like I realize I'm like, man, I'm like real happy, like reading comics and source books and
right.
Makes me real happy.
Well, and there are different modes too. There might be something that comes along that, changes that temporarily for you. There's an ebb and flow to a lot of this. Yeah.
Which made me think of another thing that I was thinking about with this question is that like how much of my experience as being a depressed person or just like living in my own head intersects with endurance. Like how often it is not a problem to be solved and there isn't a thing I can do. I will be in a specific mood or have a specific kind of like mental malady and there isn't a solution for it. I can't fix it. I take medication to kind of manage it. There's no fast acting medication.
No,
there's no inhaler for it. So in those cases, I have to be like, yep, today is kind of a wash. Like I feel like shit. I am overwhelmed. I can remove myself from the internet and kind of remove some of the stimulus, but I don't feel good. What will distract me? What is going to make time move forward while I endure this?
Right. What can I plug into that will, that will let me detach? Yeah.
I just need to focus on something other than myself and like what is happening inside my head.
I cannot be locked in here. Left to my own devices, I will drink salt water. I will, doom scroll. Right.
Yeah.
And in that case, escapism, engaging with something else when you're really not feeling up to it right now. Sorry. That is a valuable thing to be able to do without guilt, and consciously as a choice that you are making for yourself. Yeah.
So I think about that as a valuable thing for it. Like it is useful just to put yourself somewhere sometimes. In terms of like places that I find, there's kind of two elements. Like there's the pretending to be somewhere else,
right?
Which can come through, and there's also just the getting out of your head and focusing on a different thing element. And I am much more in the second than the first. Like I don't. I don't think too much about like being in a place.
If I go into a realistic world in a video game when I'm not necessarily like feeling up to engaging with a realistic world, in my meat body or whatever. Like, I'm going to carry a lot of those feelings forward into it. Like, if I can't bring myself to, to wash my dishes, like, bringing myself to go kill those 10 crabs or whatever in a Morrowind is going to feel really similar to that to me. I'm going to be like disengaged to it. So like,
you don't want to go on the yard work simulator.
Right. Although weirdly, a game that is a yard work simulator like House Flipper or whatever, or Thief Simulator or something like that, where you are engaging with a very limited scope of things. Like, you're not actually like existing in this world and doing engaging in anything close to agency. You are completing tasks and engaging with systems that weirdly gets around it for me. But yeah, I'm in the second boat there, where something that is more systems heavy, which is why, like, I don't know, I can tell how depressed I am by how much Tetris I'm playing at a given time.
Sure.
Like, and that, that is nowhere near to another world that you are plugging into to exist in elsewhere. That is something that you are doing to occupy parts of your brain to keep you in a pattern.
Yeah. And there's a scale too, like, because sometimes you can play something realistic, or I can, and it's just like the thing that gives me the proper remove is I'm buying into the premise.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not Gary Butterfield. I'm, Blake Shutley, star of Watch Dogs 3. Like, Blake Shutley's going to go and take care of things. So there's an element of that. When I want to actually be in a different place, those kind of like, yard work simulators you mentioned, I want to give a big shout out to a game I've only played a couple hours of, but they were really therapeutic, which is the Coin Game.
Oh, yeah.
Which has now had the survival update has been patched into it. Yeah.
Nice.
Yep, so there is the game mode of it, but just being like, yeah, I'm going to wander around our perpetual childhood and play carnival games.
Yeah.
Made me feel like I was in a place in a way that was like incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
Especially since, going out and doing things is not possible now.
Hugely. Yeah. VR has been like that for me. Like, certain, things you can get on the Oculus Quest that end up being like just virtual nature tour kind of stuff of like actual places, or just like zooming around Google Earth as a game experience.
Yeah.
Just to get out and see some stuff. That has also been very helpful right now in this specific circumstance.
I could definitely see that.
Yeah,
for sure. Like as a thing. So there's kind of different levels of what you want.
Yeah.
Like, do I want to just be out of my head? Do I want to actually pretend to go somewhere? How much of that do I need?
Yes. And for the second part of the question here, like, what are some of your favorites to slip into when the real world gets to be too much? I love management sims, and let's even say The Sims, because if part of my depression and anxiety comes from feeling like I'm out of control, and going in and playing something like Frostpunk or RimWorld, even though those are extremely hostile, grabbing those inclement situations and turning them around and getting a hold of them feels very gratifying. Similarly, The Sims, we talked about that when we did our episode about The Sims, as a refreshing meritocracy simulator and how important that is. Like, that is still true. And I think plays into this quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The Sims is my ultimate canary in a coal mine for depression. Like, that's, things are bad. Right. When I get that out, even though I love that video game, things tend to be bad. So that's one of them. And then also things that I know really well, like running through Dark Souls or whatever. Yeah. That's like that's a big thing. Like, and then also because of the nature of our job, sometimes like just getting ahead on work will serve this escapism purpose.
Oh yeah.
Like, be really therapeutic. Just like, hell yeah, like I can I need space to be depressed in the next week because I don't have to play a game for work. So yeah, that's kind of my experience. But I guess like in a general sense, like, let yourself off the hook for enjoying escapism.
Yeah.
Like there are video games I don't like, and I'll be like, I think this game sucks, and then somebody will be like, well, it's just kind of escapism, like it's something to do with my hands. And I still maybe don't like that game. Like, it's not for me, but I don't think it's bad because
Right.
it's escapism.
Uh-huh.
You know, I don't think Destiny is lame because people use it as escapism. I just think it's lame. It wouldn't work for me as such, but go free.
Yeah.
Go God. Like if that's therapeutic to you, like take that therapy and run with it.
Yeah, like that becomes a different conversation at that point. Like, this is something for you that you are doing for you. Like, I'm not really involved in that.
Yeah.
Like, and I kind of shouldn't be if it makes you feel good. So, yeah, you know, don't take my opinion into account if it's going to like throw water, you know, on throw water on your good time. Like, I don't know, Ghost of Tsushima looks kind of boring to me, but I've had a lot of people say like, oh man, going around this beautiful world has been very satisfying given the circumstances right now. It's like, shit, man, I get it.
Yeah, I get it. Like, even if it's people are saying, you know, coming out with like, oh, it's like just as we're like recording this, you know, I usually have a Twitter window open because I'm poisoned.
Okay.
And it was just like somebody was like, you know, this is really pretty and has decent combat. When it comes down to it, it's another open world game with missions where you have to trail an enemy without getting too close and not getting too far behind.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what a combination of words that is absolute poison to me. God, do I fucking hate doing those things in video games.
Yeah.
How did that make it past GTA 3? Mm-hmm. Like, we still are doing the, like, you have to tail somebody and not get too close or too far. God, that fucking sucks.
I've never heard anybody say they like that. So why is it still happening?
Can you imagine it? Like, can you imagine somebody like, man, I fucking love not knowing, like just having to walk in a line, but not knowing how fast or slow I should do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that it owns. Like, God damn it, dude. It's got to stop. You can't keep getting away with this. Why does it happen? But anyway, yeah, like if checking those things off a box for you, you know, looking at a map and clicking all the dealies is what's doing it for you. That's awesome.
Yeah, and there is a version of that where if that was rendered just as text, it would sound patronizing. Like, oh, you can have your toy. Like, that's not how I mean it. Just like that.
I mean, you can have your toy, man. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Take
like,
your toy.
Go. Like, have fun with it.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, toys rule.
Yeah.
You know, it's great shit. I've been reading second edition Shadowrun source books every night. Mm-hmm. And then I made a dream house in The Sims. Mm-hmm. With multiple skeleton butlers. And all the doors in the house are secret doors. They're all bookshelf secret doors.
Ooh, very cool.
Even to go into the bathroom. So it's really great. Like, you know, that allowed me to move time forward a little bit to get past whatever patch I was in.
Yeah.
That was too painful to bring my full consciousness to.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Is there a point where it can be pathological, where it becomes addiction? Yeah, that's very rare, and I don't know that that's something that the average person is going to be in danger of.
Yeah, especially not now.
Yeah.
Like, that is not the biggest fire. Like,
no.
Your job is to survive this year.
Yep.
And if you survived, you did good.
Yes.
Like, if you're not catching up on TV or books or whatever, fuck it. Like, you need to survive and not get other people sick. And if you've done that, you're a absolute A plus.
You have fulfilled your responsibility, citizen. Yeah.
Yep. So if you're doing that, good job.
Yeah.
Moving on to responses to the games, and there are a lot more of these than I thought there were. Yeah, that's great.
Most of them are Hitman 2.
Let's do it. I'll read this first one because you read the prompt. Mm-hmm. Moving on to Hitman 2, Alex says, and Alex is the person who picked this. Mm-hmm. Thanks for covering Hitman 2. One of my favorite little bits of good design in Hitman 2 is the challenges screen. They often point you towards the outcome of a creative kill in a way that still lets you puzzle out how to make that happen. That little nudge is usually all it takes. The best are the sniper challenges, which ask you to kill targets from very specific vantage points that their usual routes never seem to intersect with. Figuring out how to create that shot for yourself is a joy. Yeah,
agreed. The challenge screen is amazing. Yeah,
it's really good. Yeah, I haven't done too much with these sniper modes in Hitman, or the sniper challenges specifically, or the iOS game that is sniper related. But I think that in just general play and in missions, I really love that challenge screen.
Yes. It's really satisfying in Hitman 2 when they put up the big grid of achievements and it like slams through them and highlights the ones that you've gotten. That's really cool. That's a satisfying way to show progress. Yeah.
And show how, what you still have to do. What's still left.
Yeah. Stuart writes via contact, one thing that really worked for me about Hitman 2 was that I rarely felt like my run of a level was doomed by being compromised or hunted. I had such an array of tools and methods that I was able to extricate myself quickly from most bad situations without making them worse. I've been thinking about what it is that allows for this. I imagine it's a combination of good AI, ample player verbs, compartmentalized challenges, and clear consequences. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think all those things contribute. And then another one is big maps.
Yep.
When I would get compromised, I would run to the other side of the map, and the people were like, it's good AI. It's like realistic. It's not telepathic guards.
Yeah.
Like I can run to the other side of the map, and people who have never heard of me, aren't looking for me.
Right.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. Even if you don't think it's fun to get caught in Hitman 2, it's manageable in my experience. Like, I could also always make an escape if I didn't want to roll with the chaos.
Yeah, I think that what you laid out, the AI, the verbs, all of those contribute. I think it's just a really well designed game, and the systems, support each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Evan says via contact. I came to Hitman 2 because of the YouTube channel Writing on Games. I used his advice again to pick up this game at the end of June. Of course, it ruled. That same week, I was pleasantly surprised to hear that you'd be covering this game for your July episodes. This was a first for me. Typically, I finish a game and quickly to check to see if there's an older episode that covers it. I started listening to you with Bonfireside Chat when I discovered a love for gaming during my master's degree in 2017. My brother gifted me his old Xbox 360, and he wouldn't give me the rest of his games until I beat Dark Souls.
Wow.
After that feat, I started consuming more kinds of games and more of your podcast, and eventually started supporting the channel on Patreon. With that said, this is the first time I had a chance to write in for an episode as it was coming out. But really, I just want to take the time to say thanks for making my experience with video games better. On a side note, I'm getting my doctorate at CCM in music performance. It's pretty rad knowing that Cole went there as well.
Yeah. Congratulations on making it into that program. It's super prestigious and a lot of hard work. But you know that. And yes, even though I did go to CCM, I was in the part of the college that did not require talent.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the music college within University of Cincinnati that
Cole majored in helping people move.
Yep. As
he majored in owning a truck.
Yep. No, all of the singing and performance, as a music college, it's second only to Juilliard whenever they do those ranking kind of things. Extremely prestigious, but then they have this AV specialist kind of like appendix hanging off of it like a skin tag. I was in that skin tag. But I hope you're enjoying it. UC is a cool place.
Yeah. Nice job, Evan. And thanks for the kind words. I subscribe to Writing on Games, but I don't think I've ever listened to it or watched it rather. I think I saw it because it showed up in my Games Crit algorithm. And I was like, someday I'll do that. There's a couple other there's a games as literature one like that too, who only covers stuff I don't care about, but it looks like a tone that I like.
Yeah.
So
well, hey, at least Writing on Games has Hitman content that
I'll have to check that out at some point.
Yeah. That's weird. That's a weird power play on your brother's part to give you a system but not give you all the games until you beat the game he wants you to beat.
It's pretty cool, actually. Into it.
Yeah. Mike says via contact, getting into these two Hitman games for the first time recently has underlined how overrated realism is in games. Give me dense, crunchy systems that yield consistent results. Does it make any sense that I can kill an unconscious target by dropping them 6 feet? Or that a character will drink from the same glass repeatedly without ever finishing it? Or that when guards know that there's a killer in their midst, the guy with the suspicious barcode on the back of his head isn't one of the prime suspects. Of course it's not, but they are rules that the player can learn and reliably game, like moving pieces across a board. And a nice side effect is the absurdist flavor. I've attempted to get into the series before, but I've always been turned off by the tone of the earlier Hitman games, which overplay the humor and tend to reduce everyone to broad caricatures and stereotypes. One of the smartest moves that IO made with this reboot trilogy was the decision to simply let the ludicrousness of these situations be the punchline in and of itself.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, these are very simmy games that are both realistic and unrealistic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are actual degrees of like great realism in them in comparison to just in the world of video games, not necessarily in the world of actual things, but they're the world of the world. But it's very judicious and smart where it decides to deploy that.
Yeah. And it favors fun. If there's a conflict between realism and fun, there are probably times where they don't, but broadly they favor fun. They favor predictability. They favor treating this as a system and a game that you're meant to understand. Reality is messy and chaotic in a way that these can get, but usually because of unexpected interactions that you can come to understand.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Johnny says, by contact, it took a bit of adjusting to get on board with the over-the-top humor of Hitman 2, but one joke in particular won me over. I was on the final mission of the game. I decided to work my way up Providence's ladder in order to complete the contract. I managed to steal, trespass, and strangle my way to enough coins to earn an initiation into the Ark Society per their rules. 47 was led into a dungeon and seated in a makeshift electric chair / lie detector. One of the twins came down to interrogate him. I answered the questions completely honest the first time. As it turned out, being a complete sociopath was the golden ticket. Out of curiosity, I decided to replay the section and answer dishonestly. With each wrong answer, the twin who interrogated me stepped closer and closer to 47 while commanding the polygraph operator to increase the voltage. I expected an opportunity for 47 to jump up and CQC her to death after the final question. Instead, she was electrocuted with a lethal charge from the machine because she walked into a random puddle from a leaky pipe in front of the chair. Her glowing, stiff body fell to the floor. 47 casually stood up, picked up her access card, and walked out of the room. I had to pause the game and put down the controller and wait for the deep belly laughs to subside before I moved on to the next objective. Well done, IO. After 20 years, they can still surprise me. Thanks for reading it. Thanks for the work, and take care.
Yeah. I didn't get that one, but that sounds like it would be a very funny moment. Similar to when, what's her name, in the Miami level, electrocutes herself when she spills champagne near a live wire. Yeah.
Yep, that's great.
Yeah.
Yep.
Funny games. Elliot writes via contact, whilst going for walkies with my dog, I always load up Duckfeed podcast. When I saw Hitman 2, I thought, wow, I haven't played this in over 20 years. I listened to it for 5 minutes and realized that A, there were new Hitman games, and B, I need to pause the podcast and get this game immediately. Luckily for me, Steam had the 2 latest games for $40 Australian. What came next in my life was a collage of silly outfits, fogged mirrors, ingenious traps triggered by the janitor, and death by asteroidea, or starfish. After going through the game on medium difficulty, I felt it is best played without save scumming, and tried to adapt to a foil plan. I was very guilty of this in my first playthrough, whilst I tried to learn the mechanics and know my place in these nuanced and subverted environments. While it isn't as much of a pleasure to be caught as in this as it is in, say, Metal Gear Solid 5, Gary and Cole are absolutely right when they say that this game plays well as a shooter when things go tits up. Also, Spicy Gary's impersonation of Agent 47 is amazing. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask that all of these responses be read in this voice.
I think it is unreasonable.
It's hard to say something. It's hard to say something like Agent 47 when it is not something that Agent 47 would say.
Well, and reading aloud, like things I haven't read before.
Yes.
Like, is a weird way to detach your brain, and juggling another thing while trying to do that would embarrass everyone involved.
It would demean us.
Yeah, it would demean us all. It'd make humanity lesser. It would take us further away from the stars. Like, it would not be good.
Right.
But yeah, I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I'm glad we were able to tell you about the new Hitman games.
Yeah.
Hopefully you played the Hitman 1 levels in there as well, because they're also really great.
Yeah.
So,
God, I want to go back and revisit this game. It feels like forever ago.
It does. I was surprised. I was like, oh, this is the thing we did first. I forgot. But like going through and doing like the full series in Hitman 2's engine, from the first one and all the DLCs and stuff would be fun.
I just need to find a way to make that into content so I can justify it.
Yeah. Stream it.
Well, yeah, I could stream it.
Yeah. Eli says via contact, I love this game. I love this game so much, maybe too much. I love getting through a level, never getting spotted, never taking off 47's suit. I love manipulating both targets to be in the view of my sniping position on a rooftop. I love the insane things that Agent 47 says to his targets. I love the feeling of getting 5 stars, silent assassin, and I even love getting 0 stars, non-target killed times 38. I love it when everything goes according to plan. I love this game so goddamn much. A fun fact to keep this response from just being drooling praise: the Maelstrom, your unknown target in Mumbai, actually has a slightly faster walk cycle than other NPCs when he's not on the screen. This includes when he's behind an obstacle or a wall and you view him in instinct mode. Knowing his route, this means you can assassinate him without having to actually play the guessing and clue hunting part of the level. God, I love this game. Neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's got places to be.
He does. Yeah. I agree with the praise. Love this series. Can't wait for the new one. January can't come soon enough.
For many reasons.
True. Yeah. James writes via contact, I was really quite pleased when you guys mentioned how low-key hilarious the Hitman series tends to be, because not only do I agree, but it reminded me of an incident from my childhood that now especially seems funny. I was born right at the beginning of the 90s, and I had more books and games than friends as a kid. Not a lot of kids my age meant that I ended up fairly introverted. And that combined overall with the moral panics over video games led to some friction with my parents. They fell pretty hard for the whole video games are basically create your own serial killer products mentality. So I think that you can guess what happened when my mother came into my room and saw 12-year-old me playing Hitman 2 Silent Assassin. If you can't, she, for some reason, thought my controlling a suited bald man in the field of a church to be something that needed questioning. Maybe it was the extremely sinister nature of his crouch-walking animation. I honestly, read stupidly, told her that the name of the game was Hitman. She immediately flew into anger panic, swiftly taking my computer's power cord and having my father cart the thing off as soon as he got home. This was a shame because had she given me 2 minutes, I could have shown her the extent of the, quote, realistic violence in this game by emptying my silver baller pistols into a random guard, causing his body to take a pose reminiscent of a starfish and rocket off the goddamn moon, with 2 little red puffs coming out of his body, as though he carried ketchup packets in his breast pocket. We're talking about as edgy as Tex Avery here. Alas, I got no such opportunity and had to miserably wait for my parents' "the child is ruined" status to wear off and return my toys. My sister and I have been big fans of playing and watching these games. Nothing has made me happier than to see IO Interactive maintain the pattern of delightfully written doublespeak that 47 delivers to all of his unwitting targets. The finish line here in Hitman 2 contains possibly my favorite example. When 47 is calmly explaining the contents of the vitamin rejuvenation treatment, the target catches on just enough to ask if she should be concerned about belladonna being in her IV, to which 47 merely replies, "I'm not." I'm very excited for Hitman 3 and hopeful that they will close the story out. The Hitman games somehow avoided the dork age of video game writing when everything got all grim-darked up. I don't know how long it will be able to hold out.
My understanding is there's that one that is pretty like
Absolution
dark
ends
age.
up kind of being
Absolution.
like that.
Yeah. But I haven't played it, but that's my understanding.
Yeah.
To me, the Hitman games are these new ones.
Yes.
Like I'm probably not going to go back to any of the old ones. And I'm happy to do so because I think these are pretty perfect.
Yeah.
So
agreed.
Yeah. And then taking your power cord.
Yeah, that's rough.
That's rough. Sorry, F.
Yeah.
Can we get an F in the chat? Matthew says via contact, I want to start with a caveat. I'm only writing a negative response about the game, but I understand that's coming from a place. But please understand it's coming from a place of love. Columbia has had far more than its fair share of negative depictions in media. At this point, the fictional Colombian drug lords outnumber the real ones 1,000 to 1, and I certainly couldn't have expected the Hitman games to fix this. But noting the way Colombia is depicted here versus my own experiences in the country gives me an exceptionally icky feeling. I spent most of my time in the Colombian highlands around Bogota, a city that in large parts looks barely distinguishable from, say, downtown Portland. But my understanding is that even in the lowlands where this level takes place, in this day and age, you're not likely to see the kind of thatched roof Macheteville that is depicted in the game. My feeling is that the devs looked up photos of contemporary Colombia, weren't satisfied with what they saw, and decided to use photos from the 60s to slumify them 20%. There's a broad division between the game's depiction of trendy, idyllic first world countries and then the pretty ridiculous Joseph Conrad fantasy version of third world countries. It does feel strongly that an imperialist fantasy of a white man mastering a savage land is kind of the unspoken goal of some of these levels. Colombia is admittedly poor. It has severe problems with government corruption, overzealous policing, and income inequality. Who doesn't these days? But it is a developed-ass country with a beautiful culture. Hell, they put artists on their damn currency. The mayor of the capital city and several members of the parliament are card-carrying and open, proud members of the LGBTQ community who enjoy strong popular support. The country is pretty damn cool in a lot of ways. You'll definitely be saying a lot of positive things about the game, and chances are I will agree with almost all of it. I love this game, and you bet your sweet ass I'm going to play the next one to death. But it's worth examining that the globe hopping in these games, like in the James Bond movies they're aping, is coming from a Eurocentric tradition and probably carrying forward some old racist habits. To be fair, this is better than the depiction of Colombia in the Codename 47 game. Think of a 1920s Disney racism. Yipes. Yeah, yipes. That's my yipes. Additionally, the part where you throw a drug dealer to his pet hippo is a pretty amazing Colombian inside joke that goes a long way towards redeeming the whole level. When my wife, who is from Colombia and felt pretty uncomfortable at the level, saw that part, she got a good laugh out of it and said, at least they did some of their research. If you haven't already, Google hippo plus Colombia. Trust me, it's a hell of a tale. Much love, gentle fuckers, and keep the faith. Thank you, gentle fucker.
I like that.
Gentle fucker to you.
Had a good day. Yeah. So I did Google Colombia plus hippos. They call them cocaine hippos. But not for any particular reason other than Pablo Escobar, kind of during the height of his reign, specifically around the city of Medellin, brought in 4 hippos, just to kind of make his own private zoo there. After he was taken down, they didn't really handle the hippos properly. And they started filling an empty niche in specifically the rivers of Colombia. Large herbivores are actually really important to some ecosystems and things like that. So they thrived because hippos are death machines, and they multiplied. And though they are ecologically not as devastating as an invasive species should be, having a bunch of hippos just rolling around is not really a great thing. So yeah, the cocaine hippos have grown wildly out of control. In the rivers down there.
Yeah, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that when I think about the I agree 100% with this response that it's shitty to do that.
Yeah,
I think that not letting anybody off the hook. When I think the point that the responder had where they said it's as bad as it's what the James Bond movies that they're trying to ape.
Yeah.
I felt like this was the depiction of Colombia through the genre more than anything.
Yeah.
Which is not good.
It's not an excuse.
But it makes it interesting. It sucks that Colombia gets the shitty end of the stick, where you look at something like Sapienza, which was very beautiful and idyllic as a Spanish villa. There could definitely be it's not like there aren't problems in Spain that are also depicted in media.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
it's a bummer.
I feel bad because I didn't even think of it. I just kind of I took the depiction at face value, even though I know better. I just didn't question it.
it might have been, it is kind of like a pop cultural whipping boy kind of thing where I'm kind of surprised they did not do, a Sapienza style fake town, but it just kind of in media, Columbia just means drug. It means drug lord.
Yeah,
that is a bummer.
It's a shorthand in America when the shorthand ought to be like, oh yeah, a place where we fucked around a lot and created all kinds of weird power vacuums that just fucked around entire populations. Okay, yeah.
Or that we shouldn't have those kind of shorthands in general because all of these places are incredibly complicated. But it's interesting, like the response, speaking to like positive and negative stereotypes, because it's like both are bad.
Yeah.
Like it's, but one is way worse.
Yeah.
Like you can do like, this is the idyllic Spanish, villa. This is what France is. It's fashion shows and catwalks,
Right. Yeah.
When actually there's crime and horribleness there as well.
Racism. Yeah. Like there's all kinds of like bad things about Western Europe,
Macaroons.
Oh, God, fucking coconut, man.
Yeah. You started.
You already did.
I know.
Yeah. And it's funny because like I looked at that level and if I praised it, I forget what we said because everything falls out of my mind after we record. Like I think the story that they end up showing that the people who live around this compound are being exploited by the corrupt, by the corrupt gang that is there. Like, I don't know. I was into that as a story, and I really enjoyed seeing them get their comeuppance for abusing the people around them. I have no idea like what negative stereotypes that seemingly progressive idea is propping up. Right.
Well, it's one of those things where like I think the truth is that Columbia does have that. Is what the writer is saying, but it's just if you're going to have one level in Columbia and choosing to just totally show its ass, is maybe more the problem.
Yeah,
like it reduces it down to one thing.
Yeah, which is
partly the nature of like a globetrot. But making that choice was the thing that is worth some criticism.
Yeah. Yep, it's something. It's like something you see on Twitter occasionally. Like people will throw up like a photograph and say like, here this is Mexico, and then this is Mexico in a movie, and the Mexico in a movie has like all these filters put over it to make it look like impoverished, like it's all orange and desaturated and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, like Hollywood has actually put together a whole set of visual shorthands to kind of take this regular ass looking place and make it look evil and other and lesser than.
Exoticize it. Yeah, make it terrifying.
Yeah, which is worth being aware of.
Yeah, not best practices.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Tactics Ogre responses.
Let's do. Stuart writes via contact, I love the tactics genre, but I couldn't get around some of the growing pains in this game. On the advice of a listener response from a previous episode, I've also been playing Fell Seal, Arbiter's Mark, and it contains so many quality of life improvements for the genre that I found it hard to go back. I really loved Final Fantasy Tactics Advance when it came out, but going back to it has become pretty rough as well. Are there issues inherent to genres like this that make them harder to revisit than others?
My Tactics Advance replays and Tactics Advance 2 replays always stall out because I don't care about the world or characters.
Right. The storybook gets in the way quite a bit.
The storybook sucks, and just like it's too lighthearted. Like I don't care about this like fun little Moogle and like my fun little troop of idiots. Like it's too plucky kid.
Yeah, I want the historical drama.
Yeah. So that is the thing for me, and that will bring me through a lot of stuff. Somebody mentioned somewhere, I don't know, media channels are all the same. Like saying you're wanting us to play Jeanne d'Arc. Which is a PSP tactics game.
Yes.
That I played and I liked quite a bit. And that was a thing where the history and the story kind of dragged me through, decent, but not particularly robust mechanics or builds.
Yeah.
And ultimately that's what happened also with Tactics Ogre, right? Like, I don't think the mechanics of this game are great shakes generally. I just really like the story.
Yeah.
So that is the thing that for me, it's not so much the quality of life improvements. It's the story will drag me through on this stuff. That has that basic skeleton of tactics gameplay.
Yeah.
Tactics Advance plays better than this, but I beat this and I haven't replayed Tactics Advance, even though I've tried like several times.
Yes.
So
yeah, I think like looking at this, things that might be inherent to it. A lot of the times, if you're trying to get into a new one as well, like, oh yeah, I've never played Tactics Ogre, I'm going to go back. It's just there's a lot of it. There's a lot of onboarding, and a lot of like very repetitive, grindy kind of things. And that kind of ends up being the case with like a lot of these. Like, I don't know, it'd be really difficult to go to Disgaea. Understanding what what is required from you. Like, there's just a lot of investment, both of time and attention, and learning new systems. That I feel if I try and like look at one of those. Whereas going back to Final Fantasy Tactics, like I did in the wake of playing, Tactics Ogre, at least a little bit, that is effortless because I already understand it and I know these systems and I know how to try new things and experiment.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
What James says via contact. I was first alerted to the original version of this game back in the mid-2000s when I was discovering emulation for the first time, specifically for the SNES. I played around with it a little bit, but never really beat it. Fast forward to last year when I heard the Retronauts episode on it, and I had no idea the way that it was connected to Final Fantasy Tactics, a game that I have played so thoroughly that I feel like I never need to play it again.
That's
it wasn't
weird.
until late 20... yeah, play it again. It's good. It wasn't until late 2019 that I got an old PSP from my cousin and was able to play it. Unfortunately, I ended up disappointed. Its narrative is interesting enough, and the gameplay is still so close to Tactics that I had a good time, but the classes seem too generic, with the only differences being the equipment they have access to and a few late-game unique abilities. Couple that with the fact that the class advancement system seems to incentivize that you keep the same class lineup for the whole game, despite getting new ones throughout. And don't get me started on that final dungeon. Miss me with that. Really excited to see what you guys think. Keep up the good work. We think what you think.
Yeah, we're pretty much in the same lane there.
Yeah. That's basically where we're at.
Mm-hmm. I don't know that I have anything to add.
No. Like, those are the bad things about it.
Yeah.
And the good things about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't listened to that Retronauts because I knew I would play the game eventually.
Yes.
I should go back and listen to that. I know Bob is a really big, like, Bob likes this much more than Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yes.
Yeah. And I wonder if, I'm not trying to say that he did not, but I wonder if he revisited it before they did that.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see if that's a fresh opinion or if that has any nostalgia on it.
Yeah.
So.
Finally here about Tactics Ogre anyway. Kyle says via contact, Tactics Ogre is a game that I have a lot of history with. My first experience with the game was playing through the terrible Atlas PlayStation port of the SNES original with my dad. Despite the very long load times, we are both such big fans of the original Ogre Battle and Final Fantasy Tactics that we stuck with it and got to the end. I think the social network charts showing character and faction relationships in the game were my first experience with that concept, and that level of world building has fascinated me for the rest of my life. Given my experience with the original, I was exceptionally pumped to play Let Us Clean Together on the PSP. I pre-ordered the game and still have my GameStop exclusive Major Arcana tarot cards that came with it. After I finished my MA, I had a year where I was unemployed in a small town in Canada, and I used an obscure hack to hook my PSP up to my laptop by USB, which then connected to my TV by VGA out. The laptop could send a controller input back over the USB connection to the PSP, so that I could basically play Let Us Clean Together as if it were a console game. This probably seems unremarkable these days with the availability of PSP emulation, but it's honestly the only way that I was able to get so far in this grindiest of games. I spent literal months in my room grinding up equipment and faction relationships so I could get all the endgame content and the best ending. Sadly, I spent so much time in the endgame content that I completely lost the plot and forgot what was going on in the main story. Even being unemployed, I got lost in the mammoth amounts of side quests and could not find the motivation to finish the game. Later, I got a PS TV for my dad, and he ran into exactly the same problem, despite being legendarily tolerant of grinding and an Ogre Battle superfan. He's probably done at least 100 playthroughs. Let Us Clean Together is beautiful. and in many ways a vast improvement on the SNES original. But its maximalism ultimately ruins the final product. Where the ending of Final Fantasy Tactics and Final Fantasy XII are somewhat half-baked, the ending of Let Us Cling Together is overdone. The core story that Matsuno was trying to tell about political strife and sibling relationships is compelling, but it's completely drowned out by the desire to provide near infinite amounts of gameplay. Sadly, I never have finished Let Us Cling Together, and I don't know if I ever will. Sorry for writing so much, but this one means a lot to me. Whatever my critiques of the game, I am thankful that it brought me and my dad together so many times.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I love hearing about games helping family bond. It's great.
Yeah, and Kyle's great. Like Kyle, known online as WeGraph, is a game designer, tabletop RPG enthusiast, and luminary.
Yes.
Luminary, and always happy to hear from them.
Yes.
So, yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to round us out here with Mario Golf. Thomas says via contact. As my city went to stay-at-home orders, I found myself out of a job for the first time in years. To keep money coming in, I took a delivery job and spent a lot of time catching up with the shows. As I was driving home, I caught the end of the dispatch where you announced the games for July. I actually fist-pumped in my car when Mario Golf Advance was announced. This is the only response we have for Mario Golf. So, Thomas, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know why I had picked it up, but bought it new and sunk many hours into it. It's still the only GBA card I have, and the only reason I've kept my DS Lite. I break it out every few years and still smile when I hear, nice on. I was such a sucker, I even had the GameCube Mario Golf that lets you link and import your characters from the GBA, although that game was not nearly as charming, and I bounced off. Anyway, this is probably too long already, but I'm just happy to hear you guys talk about it, and hope it'll encourage others to pick up this forgotten relic. Thanks for everything.
Thank you for writing in. I'm happy that we could make your day so hard that you fist pump in a car.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Really, really good. And also, I agreed. Yeah. Good fun game. I also want more people to play it.
Yeah,
it's good. Golf. That was the right game at the right time for WoF, baby.
It is a nice, soothing balm.
Yep.
And I've been playing a shitload of the, some of the iOS golf games that we talked about too. So the bug is not gone.
Yep, golf bugs that ruin the course.
Yeah,
bring it back into public land. Thanks everybody for writing in. If you have things to say about August games, the deadline is August 15th. And those games, as a reminder, is a two-parter on Disco Elysium, my game of the year last year. Now, in
retroactively, yes.
Retroactively, and also just real good shit. And then our premium episode for that month is Devil May Cry, the original one. I'm playing the remaster on Switch, or the remake rather. But that is the game we're doing.
Yep, I'm doing the one on PS4. It was like in a part of a bundle with the first three games. So
gotcha. It could be the same version. Because I think they remade all of them, but I'm not sure because I played Devil May Cry once when I was young and don't remember a lot of it.
Right.
So,
yeah. Disco Elysium is a two-parter. The first episode is going to be a lot of generalities. I think it probably makes sense for that to be relatively spoiler light because what I want those to be is an encouragement for people to play that goddamn game. So
yeah. So like systems and generalities, there'll still be some spoilers. Like I think that Disco Elysium is really good going into it pretty open.
Yeah.
I had misconceptions about it based on people talking about it that I wish I had not had.
Yes.
But it might be like generalities in like day one.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Like we'll figure out what makes sense. But there's a lot of side stuff. It's a pretty big text heavy game.
Yes.
So
yeah.
And then we're announcing September.
God, I can't believe it's already here.
I cannot believe it as well.
Yeah.
This is a big one. It has a big premium episode. The other ones are weirdo episodes, but I like doing weirdo episodes.
Yeah.
So we're starting off. The first game in September is a Patreon pick. We're doing Lords of Magic, the special edition of that.
Yeah.
That game.
This is a game that I was unaware of, or if I was aware of it, I had seen it like on a shelf and kind of looked over it. But this is a fantasy strategy / role-playing game from the late 90s, published and developed, or published by Sierra. And And yeah, it's a special edition. So like there's the main game that is kind of like one campaign that's meant to be played over and over from multiple perspectives. The special edition has the expansion associated with it, where there are like smaller little like kind of more guided campaigns that you end up doing.
Yes. Those Legends of Uruk.
Yes.
That show up. This is I've never played this, but I'm like really happy when this kind of shit lands on our desk. Like this might end up being, you know, 2 PC ass to go through. You know, like playing PC games I have no experience with. Like sometimes that can be a tough putt.
Yeah.
But I love it when this, like, remember when we did Nox?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it when that shit happens, man. Because like that's not a great game. I don't remember tons about Nox, but like Nox, dude, Nox.
Yeah.
Like I like it when that weird shit happens. Okay. And this is really renowned. Like this game has a really good reputation.
Yeah.
So I am sure there's something cool there. So
yeah, I'm
then you
curious.
can clip that out and throw it back at me when
when it doesn't land. Yeah. No, I just I'm real kind of intrigued by the mixture of turn-based and real time. Like the way those battles work out. I saw it compared to like the Total War series, which has my ears perking up. So
yeah, that's neat.
Yeah.
And continuing strategy here. Like we have more strategy to come as well. Like that's kind of 2020 for WoF.
Yeah. So after that, we're going to be doing something that's a little bit lighter. So the second game in September is going to be Plants vs. Zombies.
Yeah. This is a rare, like almost everything we have for the rest of the year are Patreon picks or patron picks. This is, I think, one of 2 that aren't for the whole rest of the year. And this one was very specifically because we have a spicy game for the premium episode, but also, this is a good and like was a huge game that I feel like no one has ever looked at the way that we look at games.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say like no one, like it's possible it's happened, but as far as I know, like this isn't the kind of thing people think about when they think about video games. Like there was a whole world of weird game elitism and people freaking out about PopCap ruining video games because of casual, people being into casual people being into games.
Fucking weird time. The late 20s.
What a quaint,
the late 2000s
conflict.
Yeah.
Now it's just like, does your game feature ass eating? If not, fuck it. It's not inclusive. Got to eat more ass. Like this was a quaint time where we could be like, hey, this game is bright and colorful, and tells you how to play it. Therefore,
right.
It's not good, But I actually love Plants vs. Zombies. Love these games.
Phenomenal game.
Yeah, really looking forward to talking about it. We've also never done a tower defense game. This is a weird kind of tower defense, but that's a genre I actually like quite a bit. Be fun.
And then the premium episode for September, this is a patron pick. This is a big one. God of War 2018.
Yeah, a game I have played. And really enjoyed. I don't think it's perfect, but I did like it a lot. Yeah. I'm looking forward to revisiting.
Yes. Looking forward to revisiting and temporarily forgetting that the developer, kind of the lead designer, kind of showed a bit of his ass during the Naughty Dog stuff.
Yeah, he's a Naughty Dog adjacent ally of Naughty Dog, but he's still a shithead. Yeah. But it's still fine because again, a billion people made this game.
Yes.
It's it's cool. Like I like this game. We originally talked at some point about maybe doing this on Bonfireside Chat, but it's going here instead, baby.
Yep. Like when this came out and I saw the response it was getting, I was like, we're probably going to do that for a show. So I kind of let it be. So this will be my first time firing it up.
Yeah, they're 100% things that you're going to love. Like there's some really, really good stuff, especially for your love of precocious boys.
Yep.
Is there another way I should have phrased that?
No, that's fine. Right? That's fine. No, that's good.
Okay. Yeah. Cole loves precocious boys, and this game features a good boy.
Yeah.
So.
I just said they're just I like good boys,
Yeah, no, it's okay. Like good you don't characters. Want like a bad boy.
Your Kuro, from Sekiro. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wise boys, just boys who are wise beyond their years.
Yeah. Yeah. This has a boy slowly growing up to be a man.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Where have you been hiding that boy?
Where you been hiding that boy? That's one of the best boys I've ever seen. So thanks everybody for listening, and that'll be September 15th is the deadline for responses about that. If you want to hear that God of War episode or that Devil May Cry episode, those are premium episodes. They are for patrons. If you go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv, you can join us and check it out.
Yep. And you get a bunch of other stuff in addition to that. You get Bonfireside Chat. You get a whole show in Unfilmable. It's going to be drawing to a close here pretty soon. We're going to have new stuff replacing it, but there's a lot of content that you get at the at that level.
Yeah. Yep. You can go to $5buckducks.com to find out all the stuff you get.
Yeah.
And $10 if you want to see all that stuff, which is even more.
Yeah, so much.
Yeah, absolutely. We really appreciate the people who have done so. You can also leave us ratings or reviews on Apple Podcast or anywhere you find podcast. You can tell your friends about us.
Yeah. And it's greatly appreciated. That is a great way to support us. Word of mouth.
Yep. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
Until next time, take care.
Take care. Take care of yourself and each other.